Chapter 2481. Yiqing Luo. Was there something wrong with him? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she looked at him impatiently. Miao clan leader, how big of a face do you have? After finding someone to kill me, you still tried in vain to buy the antidote from me. As she spoke, the disdain and mockery in her eyes deepened. If it was before, I would have been quite willing to make this deal with you. However, I'm not in a good mood right now, so there's no room for discussion. You. Miao Yixiong trembled with anger. But when he thought of the poison in Miao Rongrong's body, he could only suppress his anger. After the earlier scene where Yiqing Luo almost died in Yuji's hands, Miao Yixiong was now a little paranoid. He absolutely could not let Yiqing Luo die. He absolutely had to make Yiqing Luo hand over the antidote. Yi Luo, Yuji has already been poisoned. I can hand him over to you, and you can deal with him as you wish. Miao Yixiong suddenly recalled the grudge between Yuji and Yiqing Luo. Do you think you can control him? Yiqing Luo looked at Miao Yixiong in amusement, unable to imagine how this Miao tribe's leader could be so naive. Miao Yixiong knew how strong Yuji was. That was why he specially invited Yuji to deal with her. Now that he felt that Yuji was poisoned, he wanted to decide whether Yuji would live or die. Miao Yixiong's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and said, "He's been poisoned by my heart-devouring parasite. As long as he's 10 feet away from me, he'll be devoured from the inside out." Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This Miao Yixiong still had some brains at the crucial moment. He knew how to use goo poison to threaten secluded silence. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Tenjiang," she chuckled. "This cave seems to be more than 10 feet away from the surface." Miao Yixiong's face turned pale. That is to say, Yuji's internal organs have already been devoured by the heart-devouring worm. Coupled with the corrosion of the poison, TSK. Yiqing Luo continued as she shook her head. "He's already dead. How are you going to hand him over to me?" Miao Yixiong's face alternated between green and white. His body stiffened and trembled slightly. The veins on his forehead bulged one by one. It was obvious that he was furious. Yiqing Luo leisurely stood up, as her hand gently caressed Shiju's head. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly curved. He had a leisurely look on his face. It was as if the person trapped in the Miao tribe and unable to leave was not her at all. Miao Yixiong restrained his emotions. His chest heaved up and down. For the future. He needed Yi Luo's help. He had only been humiliated by Yi Luo. Once he got his hands on the antidote, he could torture Yi Luo however he wanted. Just as he was thinking of softening his tone and discussing the conditions with Yiqing Luo, Miao Yixiong's eyes widened unconsciously. He froze on the spot. He stared foolishly at Yiqing Luo's back without blinking. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she carefully turned her head and looked behind her. A wave of jade-green light covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, it covered her eyes. She felt a stinging pain in her eyes, and her body swayed for a moment. She couldn't help but close her eyes and raise her hand to block the intense green brilliance from hurting her eyes. Yiqing Luo didn't see. The place where she was standing was right under her feet, in the center of the totem. Rays of jade-green light followed the outline of the totem, as it continued to extend. Chapter 2482. This scene was clearly reflected in Miao Yixiong's eyes. He was frightened. He staggered backwards, not daring to touch that little bit of jade-green light. Seal. The seal has been unlocked. The seal that had been sealed for 700 years has been unlocked. His voice was hoarse and filled with fear. Yiqing Luo was shrouded in the jade-green light, but she didn't feel anything special. Only her eyes were pierced by the light and could only open a slit. What entered her eyes was still jade-green. She couldn't see anything else. However, since Miao Yixiong was not far away, she could still hear the words he shouted clearly. Seal? What did Miao Yixiong mean by seal? Was this piece of jade-green light the so-called seal? What was sealed in this cave? Gradually, the surrounding light finally dissipated. Her vision was soothed and Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes. When she saw the scene below her feet, even she was stunned. Only to see the totem outline under her feet was flashing, emitting jade green light. The light wasn't strong. She hadn't had time to take a closer look at the totem carved on the ground. What kind of beast was it? Suddenly, there was a turbulence under her feet. Yiqing Luo's body was unstable as she swayed slightly. The totem under her feet actually tore open a crack from the center. The crack gradually widened. Yiqing Luo immediately leaped up. By the time she stood in a safe place, the crack on the ground had already split open by more than half. Under the crack, there was a piece of jade green light and nothing could be seen clearly. The crack was about half the size of the totem. The entire cave's turbulence stopped. The cave fell into a strange silence. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the crack on the ground, trying to see clearly what was under the crack. But other than a piece of jade green, there was still a piece of jade green. Yi Luo. Stop. You stop. Suddenly, Miao Yixiong's anxious roar came from behind. That voice had a trace of panic. Yi Luo, this seal must not be unlocked. Once it is unlocked, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected. Yiqing Luo was about to ask what kind of seal it was when she heard that. Two cries of suppressed fear could be heard. Then came Miao Yixiong's furious roar. These two old farts are now in my hands. If you don't want them to die, stop. The two elders of the Bu family. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Wasn't Shijue protecting the two elders of the Bu family? With Miao Yixiong's ability, it was impossible for him to take the two Bu elders away from Shiju. Yiqing Luo immediately turned around and looked towards Miao Yixiong's direction. He saw Miao Yixiong grabbing a man's neck with one hand, his expression sinister. Shiju, on the other hand, stood at the side, its black fur standing on end as it bared its teeth and blew at Miao Yixiong. Shijue. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. Hearing its master's voice, Shiju's arrogance instantly dropped as it whimpered a few times towards Yiqing Luo in grievance. It's not its fault. Grandma Bu's neck was being grabbed. Although Miao Yixiong didn't use much strength, but she was after all an ordinary person, and he was already old so his words sounded weak. It's us ourselves, we don't want to drag you down so we left its back, hoping to let it help you. So sorry young lady, we've dragged you down again. Elder T was filled with guilt. Chapter 2483. The Miao tribe seal was released. That would definitely be disadvantageous to the young lady. A Miao tribe leader, plus the so-called seal. The two Bu elders were worried that the young lady couldn't handle it alone. So they thought of using this battle pet to help the young lady. Whoever knew, they ended up dragging the young lady down. To let the young lady be coerced by the Miao tribe leader because of them. It's all right. Yiqing Luo spoke softly as she comforted the two Bu elders. Don't be afraid, he won't touch you. Whether he moves or not depends on your performance. Miao Yixiong finally had a hostage to restrain Yi Luo and heaved a sigh of relief. But at the same time, there were some doubts in his heart. Wasn't it said that Yi Luo was someone from another continent? Why was he so familiar with the Bu family village? Everyone could see that. Yiqing Luo was very concerned about the two Bu elders. She didn't even hesitate to enter the Miao tribe alone to save them. In his mind, he suddenly remembered what third elder Miao had said before. Yi Luo was most likely related to the missing Miao tribe traitor in the Bu family village. This thought made Miao Yixiong's expression congeal. He raised his malicious eyes and looked at Yiqing Luo coldly. Leave the seal and come over here. He paused and hurriedly shook his head. Wait, don't come over. You, stand over there. Miao Yixiong pointed to a place opposite him. Miao Yixiong knew that he wasn't Yi Luo's opponent. If Yi Luo went near him, there was a high possibility that he would save the hostage. This was his only bargaining chip now. Yiqing Luo didn't make any sarcastic remarks this time. Instead, she directly walked towards the direction that Miao Yixiong pointed. Seeing Yiqing Luo being so obedient, Miao Yixiong heaved a sigh of relief. Before he opened his mouth, he was interrupted by Yiqing Luo coldly. You want the antidote? Antidote. Naturally. Miao Yixiong's words were swallowed back as he answered Yiqing Luo's question. But immediately his expression suddenly turned gloomy. But Young lady, the bargaining chip is in my hands now, so you should be the one begging me. If you want these two people to live, then listen to me obediently. Miao Yixiong's tone was extremely arrogant, as though he wanted to get back at Yi Qingluo for all the humiliation he had suffered previously. All right, go ahead. Yi Qingluo's lips curled upwards as she generously spread out her hands. She moved. Miao Yixiong cautiously grabbed the necks of the Bu family's elders and took a few steps back. You don't move. I won't move. Yi Qingluo smiled even more indifferently, but the more she laughed, the more she laughed. In Miao Yixiong's eyes, the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Now you know how to be obedient. In order to suppress the strange feeling in his heart, Miao Yixiong focused his attention on Yi Qingluo. This arrogant little girl was now so obedient. It was enough to prove that the two elders of the Bu family were very important to her. His eyes turned cold and suddenly he sneered. Little girl, I am not a narrow-minded person. How about you kneel down in front of me now and kowtow to me twice, then the matter of you poisoning Rongrong, trespassing into the Miao tribe, and even breaking the seal that the Miao tribe had guarded for 700 years, will be written off. No. No way. The two elders of the Bu family immediately stopped him when they heard that. How could they possibly let the young lady kneel down for them? Although they had not spent much time with the young lady, but they were clear. The young lady was an extremely confident person. It was absolutely impossible for her to lower her head to anyone. Such a proud and unyielding young lady. Chapter 2484. Most importantly, even if Yi Qingluo was willing, they weren't willing. Shut up. Miao Yixiong shouted coldly as his hands exerted more strength. Bu Lao Er coughed violently as both of their hands tried to break the fingers on their necks. Looking at the two of them who were like ants being pinched in her palms, struggling on their deathbed, Miao Yixiong finally had the pleasure of being able to hold his head high in the air. Thinking of how he had begged Yi Qingluo several times to give him the antidote. Thinking of Yi Qingluo's high and mighty attitude of not giving him any charity, Miao Yixiong's eyes were burning with excitement. Kneel down. Quickly kneel down. No. No. Ah. Before Elder T could finish his words, his neck was strangled by a force. He cried out miserably as his body stiffened and his struggling stopped as his eyelids started to roll. Yi Luo, if you don't kneel down, I will kill this old man and then this old woman. Miao Yixiong couldn't wait to see Yi Qingluo being trampled under his feet. He was the dignified Miao clan leader. He had always been high up. How could he suffer a loss in the hands of a young lady time and time again? He wanted to destroy this humiliation. He was still the noble Miao clan leader. Yi Qingluo's gaze was fixed on Elder T without blinking. Looking at Elder T's pale face and eyelids rolling outwards, as though he was on his last breath. Her gaze turned colder and colder. That gaze made Miao Yixiong's heart tremble for no reason. You, how dare you look at me with such a gaze? Miao Yixiong instinctively took a few steps back. You're not allowed to look. I order you to kneel on the ground and look at me pitifully while wagging your tail. He was shouting so fiercely, but his hands had subconsciously loosened the grip on the two old men. How would he dare to kill the two Bu Lao heir? This was his only bargaining chip. Why? Miao clan leader, you've captured two hostages and this is your only request? Yi Qingluo finally opened her mouth. Her voice was cold, and no one could tell the emotions in her words. Miao Yixiong clenched his teeth as he growled fiercely. Right. This is my only request. Are you going to kneel or not? I won't kneel. Yi Qingluo spat out two decisive words. Good, very good. You don't want to kneel? If you don't kneel, I'll kill him. Miao Yixiong's eyes were red with anger. He raised the arm that was strangling Elder T. He threatened, hoping to see a flustered expression on Yi Qingluo's face. But Yi Qingluo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled gently. Miao tribe leader, do you really dare to attack? Her smile was filled with disdain and ridicule. Her long and narrow eyes slowly turned contemptuous. As long as something happens to them, the next person to die will be you. Her voice was soft. It was a very unusual conversational tone. Every word was like a hammer to Miao Yixiong's heart. He was so terrified that even his pores were dilating and his body was trembling. Miao Yixiong knew this very well. Yi Luo was serious. She had the absolute strength and confidence to kill him. Moreover, if he was the slightest bit careless, there was a high possibility that Yi Luo could save the Tu Bulao heir from his hands. After thinking for a moment, Miao Yixiong's arrogance gradually dissipated. His two hands loosened from the Tu Bulao heirs' necks and grabbed their shoulders instead. Chapter 2485. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This Miao tribe leader was really rather adaptable to circumstances. He could be high and mighty in an instant, and he could be humble in an instant, freely retreating and advancing. Suddenly, she understood the reason why he was able to sit on the position of tribe leader for such a long time. After all, if one was shameless, he would be invincible. Seeing Yiqing Luo staring at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile, Miao Yixiong felt goosebumps. He understood her emotions and moved her with reason. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. What you just opened is the seal that the Miao tribe had been guarding for 700 years. Luckily, this seal is not completely opened, and there's still one last layer of seal left. If the last layer of seal is opened, not only the Miao tribe will be in danger, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected and affected. Both of us are injured, so there's no way you can leave this place. So now, I should have the conditions to discuss the deal with you. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as her gaze slowly fell onto that crack which had split open. What kind of seal is this? Yiqing Luo didn't answer Miao Yixiong's deal but asked the doubt in her heart. The Miao tribe's seal. Why would it have such a huge impact on her? Miao Yixiong frowned as he felt displeased, but he had no choice but to answer. I'm not too sure what it is exactly. This is the ancestral order passed down by our ancestors. Every generation of tribe leader has to do their best to protect this seal from being opened. Yiqing Luo nodded her head thoughtfully. Yi Luo, if you want to leave this forbidden grounds, only I can help you. So if you give me the antidote, I will let the three of you leave immediately and promise that I will not find any trouble with anyone in the Bu family village. Miao Yixiong saw that Yiqing Luo wasn't going to mention about the deal, so he might as well tell her his conditions directly. Why should I believe you? Yiqing Luo shrugged. You hate me and need the Bu family village's people to find the traitor. If I give you the antidote, will you really let the three of us leave? Miao Yixiong's eyes flashed as his expression gradually turned cold. You can only choose to believe me. He paused for a moment. The expression on his face gradually became ferocious, adding a hint of madness. Yi Luo, you should know that if Miao Rongrong dies, she won't be able to become the holy maiden, and I'll be ruined. Since I'm ruined, why don't we all die together? Yiqing Luo could tell that when Miao Yixiong said these words, his eyes were almost bloodshot red, filled with madness and a trace of chilliness. He was serious. If he destroys himself, in that case he might as well destroy everything. Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. A selfish person like Miao Yixiong was truly cold-blooded and emotionless. He had asked her for the antidote time and time again. It was not for Miao Rongrong's life. It was because Miao Rongrong was about to become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. If he was destroyed, might as well destroy everything and be buried with him. Little girl, now, you only have one choice. You can only choose to believe me. Miao Yixiong didn't care about what Yiqing Luo was thinking about him. You must know that your ability alone is strong, but with these two burdens dragging you down, don't even think of leaving the Miao tribe easily. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. After some time, her eyes swept past the two Bu family elders and immediately closed her eyes as she opened her mouth. Chapter 2486. Granny Bu's body smashed heavily into the stone wall beside her. The old lady's weak body was trembling in pain from this sudden fall. And the next moment, Elder T took this opportunity to shake off Miao Yixiong's arm and rushed to Grandma Bu's side. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. She didn't expect them to use such a method to escape from Miao Yixiong's restraint. She hurriedly looked at Shiju. Shiju understood, and its huge body flew towards the direction of the two Bu elders. Miao Yixiong was shocked. The two Bu elders were his only bargaining chips with Yiqing Luo. He absolutely could not let them return to Yiqing Luo's side. He didn't have a second chance to restrain Yiqing Luo. However, what no one had expected was, after the two Bu elders broke free from Miao Yixiong's restraint, they didn't escape towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Instead, they headed towards the crack which was emitting a faint green light not too far away. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she suddenly realized something. Grandma Bu, you. Don't do anything silly, I said I can bring you. Young lady. Elder T, who was standing in front of the crack, stopped in his tracks. That wrinkled face revealed a comfortable smile for the first time since today's thrilling journey. His hand and Grandma Bu's hand held tightly. Don't come over. He looked at Miao Yixiong without a trace of fear. Come over and we'll jump down. Miao Yixiong stopped in his tracks. Shiju also stopped. Two people and one beast stared intently at the two Bu elders. Shiju stopped because he was afraid that something would happen to them. And Miao Yixiong stopped because he was afraid that he would lose the bargaining chip to restrain Yiqing Luo. Grandpa Bu. Yiqing Luo's fingers curled tightly. You come with Shiju, I can bring you away. The two Bu elders looked at each other and smiled. Their brows were filled with gentleness. Young lady, thank you for everything you have done for the Bu family village. Thank you for caring for me and old madam. Elder T smiled contentedly as he said every word. His voice was on the verge of choking. We don't want to be your burden. We don't want to see you suffer because of us. As Elder T spoke, tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. You are a good girl with a kind heart. We can't bear to see such a good girl like you suffer for us. Grandpa Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. She, who had never been rich in emotions, couldn't help but feel a sour feeling at the corner of her eyes. I'm not making things difficult for you and you're not my burden. In the beginning, she had helped them in the Bu family village. It was because the simplicity of the Bu family village had moved her. He was used to the darkness of the world. She could see a trace of clean color, which made her feel very comfortable. Later, she came to the Miao tribe and saved the two elders of the Bu family. Part of the reason was because of Miao Yi. But more than that, it was because she really felt sorry for the Bu family's elders. She didn't like to meddle in other people's business. However, he was not a cold and heartless person. She was serious about saving the two elders of the Bu family and bringing them away from the Miao tribe. Chapter 2487. I think the old man should have told you about our matters. Back then, for the future of the next generation, I brought my family and moved to Qinghua City. Our village, at least 30 over people, brought their families along with them. But we had just left the Bu family village when we were stopped by the Miao people. Grandma Bu stared at Miao Yixiong with her teary eyes. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. The Miao people carried out a brutal massacre on us without any explanation. The 30 over people who left the Bu family village, from the elderly to the newborn babies, all died tragically in the hands of the Miao people. Those people were the hope of the Bu family village, the few youngsters. All died in front of my eyes. My son and daughter are all dead. Only I survived. Shut up. Miao Yixiong's heart trembled. What he was afraid of was not Grandma Bu's hatred towards him, but he was afraid that Grandma Bu's words would bring out Yiqing Luo's hatred towards the Miao people and seek revenge for Grandma Bu. Grandma Bu gave a low laugh. Her laughter was filled with pain and mournfulness. Miao Yixiong. What people do, the heavens are watching. It's not that revenge is not coming, it's just that it's not time yet. You killed so many people in my Bu family village. In the future, don't even think about having a peaceful day. Miao Yixiong, the old man and I swear on our lives that even if we become ghosts, we will never let you off. We will turn into malicious spirits and haunt you forever. She laughed. The hoarse and aged voice had a hint of delight in it. She laughed for a long time. She slowly looked towards Yiqing Luo. The craziness on her face slowly turned gentle. Young lady, I'm sorry, really sorry. If it's possible, I hope you can avenge those innocent villagers in the Bu family village, so that we can die without regrets. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo understood Grandma Bu's current feelings. Seeing her own kin, her neighbors and good friends who had accompanied her for decades, die in front of her. No matter who it was, no one would be able to tolerate it. Grandma Bu had endured for such a long time. That was her biggest limit. And if it wasn't for Yi, I would have died when the Bu family village was massacred. She is a pitiful lady, without parents and no one to rely on. If it's possible, please help us, take good care of her. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She shouted at Shijue. Shijue, quick. Bring Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu over. Roar. Shiju roared. And its body turned into a bolt of black lightning, rushing toward the Bu family's 2 elders. However, in the end, Shijue was a step too late. The Bu family's 2 elders had already made up their minds. He didn't give Yiqing Luo any chance to persuade him to stay. At the moment when Shiju pounced over, they clasped their hands and looked at each other. Her eyes were filled with a warm smile. Then he leaped into the crack, and both of them fell into the jade-green light. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Bu. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she stared blankly at that crack. The 2 elders of the Bu family didn't want to be a burden to her. Resolutely he chose death. They knew very well that in this battle between Gu masters and Xian cultivators, they were ordinary people. He would only be a burden. Therefore, in order to let her not feel guilty, in order to let her leave with peace of mind. Chapter 2488. No. No. Miao Yixiong was filled with terror as he staggered backwards a few steps. His back was plastered tightly against the wall. Beads of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He who had lost his bargaining chip and hostage. How was he going to negotiate with Yiqing Luo? Especially, his attitude earlier had completely infuriated Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo wanted to kill him, in this place, this forbidden place which was isolated from the Miao tribe, he had no way to resist at all. Especially, earlier before Grandma Bu died, she specially requested Yiqing Luo to avenge the people in the Bu family village. Yiqing Luo was so concerned about that old fellow in the Bu family village. She would definitely kill him. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more terrified he was. His entire body was trembling with fear. No way. He absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. He was the clan leader of the Miao tribe. How could he lose to a young lady? Miao Yixiong's vision slowly shifted to the side, where the worm-shaped hole was. A plan was formed in his mind. Just at this moment, there was a violent tremor in the hole. In an instant, rays of light that were as sharp as blades rippled out from the surroundings like waves. Boom, boom, boom. A few loud sounds were heard as the ground shook. The 4 walls, which were as hard as iron, were sliced apart layer by layer. The jade-green rays on the broken walls were piercingly cold. Extremely neat. This violent tremor, it made Yiqing Luo and Shiju unable to stand stably. Yiqing Luo summoned Shiju back into the pet space and swiftly avoided the falling stones. Her peripheral vision swept past the crack behind her. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed past a sliver of disbelief and astonishment. That crack was surging with countless waves of jade-green rays, as though it was going to swallow everything in this hole. Oh no, the seal. The seal has been unlocked. Miao Yixiong stared at the sky full of jade-green rays, like waves, lingering around the entire hole. His legs felt weak as he laid paralyzed on the ground. Yiqing Luo's eyes were pierced by the jade-green rays. What did Miao Yixiong say? The seal has been broken? In his mind, Old Man Song's lamenting voice rang out. So, the final layer of the seal requires a husband and wife who possess absolute true feelings as a sacrifice. A freak combination of factors actually undid the Miao tribe's seal. In other words, Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu both jumped into this so-called seal and became sacrifices to break the seal? The Miao tribe had guarded the seal for 700 years. It was unlocked. What exactly is this? Yi Qingluo had yet to finish her question. A majestic pressure completely enveloped her. The jade-green light devoured everything about her. All of his strength seemed to have been sucked out of him. His consciousness gradually faded away. His body weakly fell backwards. But Yi Qingluo didn't feel the pain from falling onto the ground. Her body was embraced into a greeting embrace. Yi Qingluo's breathing paused as she opened her eyes hazily. In his mind, a peerless demonic face of peerless elegance appeared. The man smiled at her. She was like a fox, charming and alluring. Her pink lips moved slightly as she silently spat out 2 words. Xian. Was Xian here? Once again, when she met with a predicament, he was like a deity, descending from the heavens. But what entered her nose was an extremely elegant plum fragrance. No, this wasn't Xian's smell. This person wasn't Xian. Yi Qingluo's breathing became hurried. She wanted to struggle, but her entire body had no energy at all. The more anxious she was, the further her consciousness drifted. Ding! A melodious sound was heard from the pendant on Yi Qingluo's neck. Following that, a ray of light flashed out from that pendant. Chapter 2489. Inside the underground cave. Just as Yi Qingluo was engulfed by the jade light, a stone wall in the underground cave was blasted apart by a powerful force. Following that, a tall figure sped over. That pair of ink-like deep eyes saw the young lady who was descending from midair. That frozen face revealed a sliver of panic. He speedily went forward and held the young lady's soft body firmly in his arms. He lowered his eyes and gazed deeply at the young lady in his arms. His cold eyes gradually surfaced a sliver of gentleness and deep affection. Yi Qingluo. His voice was low and lingering, as though he was calling out his most beloved person's name. So affectionate. The young lady's slender brows creased slightly. Following that, her pink lips opened and closed, as though she wanted to raise her hand to pull him. The young man's eyes were filled with joy as he raised his hand, and was about to hold the young lady's hand tightly. But after seeing the shape of the young lady's mouth, the smile on his face slowly faded away. He regained his usual indifference, as though he was covered with frost. Xian. The person she was calling was Dmo Xian. The surrounding jade light was like a wild beast that was brandishing its claws and fangs, swallowing everything. But when the jade light touched the red-robed young man, it avoided him like a snake or scorpion. The jade light swallowed everything in this underground cave, but it forcefully separated the young man. Yi Qingluo. The young man's voice was a little hoarse. He called out Yi Qingluo's name word by word. His voice was cold and emotionless. You are mine, the person in your heart can only be me. The young man muttered softly, his voice was stubborn. He fixed his gaze on the young lady in his arms. His icy cold eyes flashed a sliver of red glow. Suddenly, he bent his head and kissed Yi Qingluo's lips. Just at the moment when he bent over, ding! A crisp sound was heard in the silent underground cave. It was extremely clear. The young man had yet to touch Yi Qingluo's lips. His eyes were stung by the intense white light in front of him. He had no choice but to dodge backwards. He raised his other hand to block his eyes. Bam! A gust of wind from a palm landed on his chest. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt like the world was turning upside down, and he was in extreme pain. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying. The girl in his arms was also taken away by an invisible force. Yi Qingluo. The young man's cold eyes froze and he didn't even bother to wipe off the blood by the side of his mouth as he immediately flew up and charged towards Yi Qingluo. It was as if the person who had just been slapped and vomited blood was not him at all. In his eyes, there was only Yi Qingluo. Zhu Wuxin, you want to take advantage of my absence to molest my woman? Are you courting death? A mellow voice faintly sounded. When the youth heard this voice, his body froze, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. It was as if he couldn't believe it. How could that person appear here? Green light flickered. Gradually, a tall and straight figure appeared in front of him. His purple robe fluttered, and he stood tall and straight. On that peerless face, his thin lips were pursed into a thin line, and his face was filled with displeasure. This man. Just by standing in front of him, Zhu Wuxin felt a powerful pressure that was continuously exerting on him. Zhu Wuxin's cold eyes flickered slightly as he slowly met the man's eyes, which could shake everything in the world. Overlord. He spat out the words coldly as his vision shifted, as it focused on the unconscious young lady in his arms. Give her to me. The man's deep and handsome face surfaced a sliver of coldness. This overlord's woman naturally has this overlord's protection. She's mine. Zhu Wuxin didn't give in at all. She has always belonged to me. Dmo Xian's eyes turned slightly cold as he lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes, as his lips curled in disdain. Following that, his finger hooked lightly as he lifted Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. Chapter 2490. A kiss. Not long after, just purely using his warmth to warm her lips, Dmo Xian raised his eyes as he looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yours? Zhu Wu Xian's icy cold expression flashed past a sliver of emotion. In the depths of his deep cold eyes, numerous storms surged. What made him furious was not Dmo Xian's action, but he clearly saw the young lady who was nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. Her brows were relaxed. Furthermore, at the instance when Dmo Xian kissed her, a faint smile surfaced on her face. And when Yiqing Luo was in his arms, she was obviously rejecting him. Even her consciousness was swallowed. Dmo Xian was the only person on her mind. He was unresigned and unwilling to let go. He had set his mind on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo must belong to him. Qing Luo. Qing Luo. Chu Wu Xian broke out from the huge hole earlier, and a few voices were heard calling out. Following that, a few figures rushed in hurriedly. How is it? Is Qing Luo all right? Did we make it in time? The few people who had just rushed in, when they saw the situation in the hole clearly, they were all stunned on the spot with a dazed look. In front of them, the surging jade light had enveloped everything in the hole. The surroundings were all covered by the jade light. Standing in the middle of the hole, the two people who were completely isolated from the jade light were especially eye-catching. Two men, different types, but both were equally outstanding, both handsome like gods. One evildoer, indolent and noble. Just a simple gaze, a minute movement. It was filled with an invisible pressure. Everything around the plunderer. One was cold as ice, domineering and ruthless. It was just a simple gaze, a casual action, but it was enough to send chills down one's spine. What kind of situation was this? Overlord? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened, and on seeing the man who was hugging Yiqing Luo, she opened her mouth in shock. You're back. Dmo Xian raised his eyes slightly as he squinted at Yan Xiaoyi, not saying a word. How is Qing Luo? Is she all right? Why did she faint? Yan Xiaoyi didn't care if the overlord answered her question as she asked worriedly. I'm fine. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes, gently gazing at the young lady in his arms. You don't have to worry. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Yan Xiaoyi heaved a sigh of relief and her gaze swept the surroundings. Where's that Miao tribe leader? Didn't he also come to this cave? Behind him, a petite figure quickly ran a few steps forward. And where are Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? What happened to them? Tisk. Zoemo rubbed his chin and clicked his tongue. The power of this seal is quite strong. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been completely devoured by the power of this seal. Miao Yi's delicate body trembled. I'm impossible. Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu. How could they? He escaped. A low and cold voice rang out indifferently. Everyone's gaze quickly followed the source of the sound. Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression on his face, calmly said. When it sensed the powerful energy of the seal, a surge of energy escaped from the cave. Is it the Miao Patriarch, or Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? Miao Yi's face was pale, her voice trembling. Gui Wu didn't answer her question. Instead he raised a pair of indifferent, emotionless eyes, looking at Dmo Xian without blinking. Chapter 2491. These words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. All of their gazes converged onto Dmo Xian in unison. Not the overlord? Yin Xiaoyi was so shocked that she swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then, who is he? He's still carrying our Qing Luo. Xiao Jin held onto Yin Xiaoyi's shoulders, his face also full of shock. It's undoubtedly Lord Dizun. Even if someone could disguise as Lord Dizun, but this temperament, besides Lord Dizun, who else could it be? Zhu Wu Xian fixed his eyes on Diemo Xian. A pair of cold eyes without any warmth. You are not him. His words were cold and emotionless. However, Zhu Wuxin's tightly pursed thin lips seemed to have turned into thin ice, betraying his anger at this moment. The glint in Diemo Xian's eyes seemed to be filled with a faint trace of ridicule. He narrowed his peach blossom eyes and laughed in a low voice. I am not him, so you think you have the right to touch Lil Luoer? You are not him, and she is not yours. Zhu Wu Xian spat out coldly. His eyes were ice cold. Diemo Xian wasn't shaken by his aura but instead laughed lightly. So, you also admit that Lil Luoer is this lord's woman? Zhu Wu Xian's expression turned stiff as he stared coldly at Diemo Xian. He knitted his brows tightly, already having doubts in his heart. This person could not possibly not be Diemo Xian. No one in the world could imitate such a temperament. Old man Gui Wu, if you don't make your words clear, this lord will not be able to explain. Diemo Xian raised his brows as he looked at Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression. Master Gui Wu, what's going on? Is he really the venerable overlord? Lord Gui Wu, don't leave us hanging. You're making us nervous. Xiao Jin and Yin Xiaoyi anxiously looked towards Gui Wu. Gui Wu indifferently raised his eyes before calmly saying, and he doesn't count. What do you mean by not considered? Yin Xiaoyi was about to die from anxiety due to Gui Wu. He's only a clone of Dizun, and not the real Dizun. Gui Wu finally said the second half of the sentence. However, the few of them were somewhat dumbfounded. What was a doppelganger? What do you mean it's not my main body? The overlord should have extracted a strand of his consciousness and placed it in an object on Yi Qing Luo's body. At specific times, this consciousness will turn into the overlord's clone and replace the overlord to protect Yi Qing Luo. Gui Wu explained in a rare patient manner. His gaze was like a torch as he stared straight at Diemo Xian. But extracting one's consciousness and transforming it into a doppelganger, not only will it consume more than half of one's profound energy, if the doppelganger suffers any damage, the main body will also suffer the same injury. Then he is. Hearing Gui Wu's words, Yin Xiaoyi was so shocked that she was unable to regain her senses. He can be called a venerable sovereign, but he's just a clone of a venerable sovereign. Gui Wu continued Yin Xiaoyi's words. For the overlord to be able to do so much for student Yi Qing Luo, I can tell that he really dotes on student Yi Qing Luo. This was more than just being doted on. He was practically using his life to pamper her. The place the overlord was going to this time was the upper realm. The upper realm that was filled with experts. The overlord had even consumed more than half of his Xian energy. If the overlord was in the upper realm, and accidentally discovered that he had consumed more than half of his Xian energy, wouldn't he take the opportunity to make a move on the overlord? It was impossible for the overlord not to have thought of these problems. But in order to ensure Qing Luo's safety, he resolutely chose to take the risk himself. They were so touched that they were about to cry. After listening to Gui Wu's explanation, everyone's feelings were different. Chapter 2492. Zhu Wu Xian stared at Diemo Xian's face without blinking. His eyes flickered with a strange glint. Just as he was about to bend his head to kiss Yi Qing Luo, the pendant on Yi Qing Luo's neck surged with a terrifying energy. Diemo Xian's consciousness. It was hidden on the pendant that Yi Qing Luo wore. He actually used this kind of method to stay by Yi Qing Luo's side. His hands, which were hanging by the side of his body, clenched tightly into fists. Everyone was moved and envied the couple in front of him. It stung his eyes. That young lady was obviously in his arms. She was clearly his girl. On what basis did Diemo Xian beat him to it? He didn't like Diemo Xian. Didn't like to see Diemo Xian hugging Yi Qing Luo. Didn't like to see Yi Qing Luo in Diemo Xian's arms, that relaxed look. Didn't like those people who treated Dmo Xian as Yi Qingluo's lover, denying his identity. Dmo Xian acutely sensed the intense resentment emitting from Zhu Wu Xian. He tightened his grip on the person in his arms as he squinted his long peach blossom eyes. Zhu Wu Xian, you know very well that the person Lil Luo, chose me. If you really love Lil Luo, then you should respect Lil Luo's choice. He paused as his lips curled into a smile. Isn't it said that if you really love someone, it is to see her happiness? Lil Luo, and me together is happiness. That smile was filled with provocation. Zhu Wu Xian's pupils constricted as his deep and cold eyes shot out an icy chill directly towards Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's brows rose as the smile on his lips grew wider. If you insist on getting Lil Luo, disregarding her wishes, then do you think you're fit to use the word love to express your feelings towards Lil Luo? I don't love her. An icy cold word was spat out from Zhu Wu Xian's mouth. The person she chose is me. Dmo Xian sneered. Are you lying to yourself? She said that she will marry me. Then she must keep to the promise between us. She promised me that she is mine, Zhu Wuxin said stubbornly. Every word he said was filled with a sense of danger. Dmo Xian frowned slightly when he heard that. He also knew that for someone as stubborn as Zhu Wuxin, nothing he said would be able to change his deep-rooted beliefs. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on Zhu Wuxin. Lil Luo, also did not have time to waste here. He lowered his eyes and looked tenderly at the disguised face of the person in his arms. He didn't lift his eyelids, but the person he was talking to was obviously Zhu Wu Xian. Lil Luo, is this Lord's woman, no matter if it's this lifetime or the next lifetime. Forever and ever, she will always be my, Dmo Xian's woman. You will never have this chance. I won't let go. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes were gloomy and cold as his deep eyes gazed deeply at Yi Qingluo. Soon after, he turned around and walked towards the huge hole that he came from without looking back. In an instant, Zhu Wuxin's aura disappeared from the cave. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were still in a daze towards this baffling fight for Yi Qingluo battle which ended in such a baffling manner. Yan Xiaoyi blinked as she recalled Zhu Wu Xian's unemotional denial earlier. He doesn't love Qingluo? That look of his. Doesn't it look like he doesn't love Qingluo? Ever since he found out that Yi Qingluo trespassed into the Miao tribe alone. Until he found out that Yi Qingluo had fallen into the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, the dangerous sealed grounds. Chapter 2493. Zhu Wu Xian, that madman. He simply released his perception like a madman and followed Miao clan leader, using brute force along the way to break through a 1,000 meters deep hole. Rushing over here to save Qingluo? He actually said he doesn't love Qingluo? Who is he trying to bluff? Recalling Zhu Wu Xian's craziness earlier, Yan Xiaoyi was still feeling a lingering fear. Zhu Wu Xian could be said to be at the stage where he didn't even care about his life. This lord will thank him on behalf of Lil Luo. Dmo Xian spoke calmly as he raised his eyes in warning. Yan Xiaoyi felt a chill down her spine as she sniggered a few times and replied in an extremely quick-witted manner. I know. Overlord, I will absolutely not tell Qingluo about this matter. Qingluo doesn't owe that madman Zhu Wu Xian any favor. Dmo Xian nodded his head in satisfaction. Overlord, the split body cannot exist for too long. It will affect the original body greatly, especially in this place. You'd better return to your original body first. The silent ghost martial artist opened his mouth once again. When Kitty Lee heard that, she immediately walked towards Dmo Xian as she opened her arms wide. Overlord brother-in-law, hand sister over to Kitty Lee. Quickly return to your original body. If sister knows that you hurt your body because of her, she will be upset. However, Dmo Xian hugged Yi Qingluo and avoided her. No worries. He spoke in a low and hoarse voice as he gazed at the person in his arms as his brows were filled with longing. This lord misses her. Sister misses you too. Kitty Lee blinked her spirited black eyes as she spoke in a serious tone. So Overlord brother-in-law, quickly come back, don't let sister keep missing you. The arm which was hugging the young lady tightened once again. Kitty Lee didn't notice Dmo Xian's emotional changes. She only told Overlord brother-in-law everything that she knew in her heart. She still wanted to say something, but her petite body was suddenly pulled by a strong force as she fell backwards. Kitty Lee cried out in shock as she wanted to struggle, but her body fell into a boiling hot embrace. A seductive voice laughed softly beside her ear. "Little wildcat, don't bother about Overlord's matters. This lord misses you too. Zoemo, you frivolous man." Kitty Lee's cheeks flushed red the moment she smelled the familiar bamboo fragrance. Zoemo narrowed his red phoenix eyes and stared at the shy kitten in his arms. His smile became more and more playful. "TSK, you look like a red apple. It seems that the little wildcat also misses me very much." Who missed you?" Kitty Lee struggled with a red face and scratched him with her claws. However, her hands were locked in Zomo's embrace. He smiled mischievously. Your face is filled with the words miss me, miss me, miss me." Kitty didn't. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned even redder. She stopped scratching Zoemo and raised her hands to cover her face. This indirectly proved how much she missed Zoemo. "Enough, you too." Yen Xiaoyi looked at the dog food which was stuffed into her mouth unknowingly. "Qing Luo is still unconscious. The both of you please be more serious." Kitty Lee used her hand to knock the man behind her. "Did you hear that? I asked you to be more serious." Zoemo smiled as he lowered his head and kissed her face. "All right, this lord is serious." "Oh. Serious, your big head." Kitty Lee's face turned even redder. Chapter 2494. Dmo Xian seemed as though he hadn't heard Yen Xiaoyi's words. His gaze was fixated on the person in his arms. A pair of watery peach blossom eyes, lingering with infinite tenderness. Yen Xiaoyi's stretched out hand quietly retracted back under this atmosphere. Xiao Jin sighed softly as he held Yen Xiaoyi's shoulder and comforted her softly. "Forget it. Overlord has been separated from Qing Luo for such a long time, and earlier he was agitated by Zhu Wu Xian. So naturally he can't bear to leave Qing Luo. But his original body." Yen Xiaoyi looked at Dmo Xian worriedly. "Overlord has his own sense of propriety." Xiao Jin patted Yen Xiaoyi's shoulder. "From what I see, the moment he saw student Yi Qing Luo, he had already lost his sense of propriety." Gue Wu's indifferent voice interrupted Xiao Jin's consolation. His gaze looked straight at Dmo Xian. "Overlord, you should be very clear that this is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds." Gue Wu's voice was very calm, but the meaning in his words was hair-raising. "The seal's power is getting stronger and stronger. Going against the seal's power will only exhaust a large amount of your doppelganger's power, and your original body will also suffer the same amount of damage." Everyone's gazes instantly congealed on Dmo Xian. "Overlord, you and Qing Luo still have a lot of time. Go back first. We will definitely take good care of Qing Luo, and will absolutely not let any other man get close to her." When Yen Xiaoyi heard that, she instantly panicked. When Qing Luo regained consciousness, to know that Dmo Xian not only left his doppelganger by her side, he even exhausted his power to go against the Miao tribe's seal's power. Wouldn't his heart ache to death? "Gue Wu." Dmo Xian didn't reply Yen Xiaoyi but shifted his gaze onto Gue Wu as he spoke in a calm tone. "I'll have to trouble you to bring them away from here." Gue Wu frowned slightly. "You're not intending to leave?" Dmo Xian looked at the person in his arms and nodded indifferently. Gue Wu didn't persuade him but really followed Dmo Xian's intention as he turned around and walked towards the hole which Zhu Wu Xian used his brute force to blast open. Zoemo hooked Kitty Lee's slender waist. "Little wildcat, let's go." Kitty Lee slapped his hand hard. "Didn't you hear what Master Gue Wu said? If Di Zun's brother-in-law didn't leave this place, it would consume his strength. How could Kitty leave my sister and Di Zun and brother-in-law behind?" "Silly Kitty. With Di Zun here, your sister will be fine." Zoemo pinched Kitty Lee's pretty face. No. Kitty Lee's attitude was firm. She would never leave when her sister was in danger. "I won't leave either." Yen Xiaoyi pursed her lips. Gue Wu stood at the entrance of the cave and said impatiently, "It's fine if you don't want to leave. Di Zun wants to die, but I don't. I don't have that much energy, and I don't need to waste my own strength." From the moment these people entered the underground cave, it was the barrier set up by the ghost marshal that was able to block the devouring power of the surrounding seal. Kitty Li and Yan Xiaoyi spoke at the same time. DMO Xian interrupted the both of them. This is little Luo'er's opportunity. The Bu family village's two elders used their own lives to open up this opportunity for little Luo. As for the rest, little Luo needs to complete it himself. Opportunity? Yan Xiaoyi and the others were stunned. Leave this place with Gui Wu. I will take care of little Luo'er's safety. Saying that, DMO Xian carried Yiqing Luo as he turned around and walked directly towards the crack which was surging with jade green light. Chapter 2495. Yiqing Luo's consciousness was still in a daze, unable to gather. She felt that her entire body was floating, as though she was a feather. Lil Luo. Beside her ear was that familiar calling voice. That voice was filled with lingering love. It made her heart feel sweet for no reason. She wanted to open her mouth to respond to that person's call, but her lips seemed to be stuck tightly together. She had no way to open her mouth. Lil Luo. Lil Luo. Lil Luo. The calling voice was still going on. Sometimes it was far away, sometimes it was close at hand. However, the emotions contained in each voice were stronger than the last. Who was it? Who was calling her? She wanted to open her eyes. She wanted to open her mouth to call the person who was calling her. But her entire body was unable to move. She could only allow her body to float up and down, float, float. Float. That calling voice became softer and softer. Gradually, she couldn't hear the voice anymore. Couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it anymore? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's heart twitched fiercely. A piercing pain made Yiqing Luo give a dull moan. The next moment, she felt that her feather-like body was being tugged by something fiercely. Her body finally had a sense of reality, finally had a sense of weight. Following that, a warm touch warmed her pink lips which were stuck together, unable to open no matter what. The elegant sandalwood fragrance filled her nostrils. First was a simple touch. Following that, it was a series of violent attacks. The scorching aura started to rise. Yiqing Luo's feather-like body, at the same time as the temperature of her body rose, gradually had a real sense of reality. She was no longer like a feather, drifting with the wind. Her consciousness was no longer in a trance, without any feeling. The sandalwood fragrance's smell became thicker and thicker. Her entire being was almost corroded by this sandalwood fragrance. Her entire body was restless and the scorching feeling made her subconsciously react accordingly. Lil Luo. This time, the voice entered her ears extremely clearly, right beside her ears, as though it was whispering the world's only treasure, extremely pampering. Yiqing Luo's heart melted. Hence, under this fierce attack, Yiqing Luo gradually regained her senses. Xian. A hoarse voice spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips with difficulty. She could finally control her body. Overjoyed, she was just about to call out the man's name. Unbeknownst to her, the man's large palm had already reached for her belt. He gently pulled. His robe loosened. Yiqing Luo suddenly shuddered and her half-dazed mind suddenly cleared up at this moment. The next moment she opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a pair of bottomless, inky eyes. In his inky black eyes, sparks of fire were burning. Some kind of emotion was very obvious. Oh! Before she could open her mouth, her lips were ruthlessly sealed again. The man's familiar face was deeply reflected in her eyes. Her heart was pounding. Her hands instinctively clenched his collar. Xian, it really was Xian. She wasn't dreaming. Xian, he really came back. The thick longing instantly eroded Yiqing Luo's heart. The corner of her eyes gradually became wet. Perhaps it was because of the longing for DMO Xian. Or perhaps it was because of DMO Xian's fierce kiss. Oh! Suddenly, Yiqing Luo, who was indulged in the longing for DMO Xian, suddenly widened her eyes. Her cheeks flushed red. She raised her hand and grabbed a certain disobedient hand. She wanted to stop it. But the man kissed her even more fiercely. Chapter 2496. But Diemo Xian's hand became more honest. Little Luo, after a long time, the man slowly let her go. He murmured Yiqing Luo's name as he rested his head on her neck. Sang Xian's voice was low and hoarse as it revealed infinite affection. I miss you so much. The man didn't conceal his feelings at all, which made Yiqing Luo unable to raise her temper. She blamed him for kissing her till she couldn't breathe when she just woke up. She snorted angrily, showing her delicate side. She slowly raised her weak hands and wrapped them around his sturdy waist. I missed you too. The man's arms around her body tightened. His face, rubbed against her neck, his warm breath, slowly awakened Yiqing Luo's sensitivity. They embraced for a moment. In Diemo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo felt especially at ease. His body also gradually relaxed. Have you settled everything in the upper realm? You won't leave, right? She nestled in his embrace, her voice soft and coquettish. You stinky heartless man. You abandoned me for half a month. We're separated by a great plain. Even if I missed you, I couldn't contact you. The hard body of the man who was carrying her suddenly stiffened. Yiqing Luo acutely felt it. She bit her lower lip and placed her hands on his chest. He pushed it slightly. The man's head left her shoulder. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and stared at him without blinking. You still want to leave? Diemo Xian's fingertips twined around a strand of her hair. He lowered his head and kissed her hair. I'm sorry. It was a tacit agreement. He would leave again. He would be lying if he said he wasn't sad. But looking at the fatigue in Diemo Xian's brows, that face filled with longing, his eyes filled with tenderness. No matter how unhappy Yiqing Luo was, neither of them could bring themselves to be angry. She missed Diemo Xian. How would Diemo Xian not miss her? She believed that if it was possible, Diemo Xian would absolutely want to stick together with her at any moment, to become a conjoined twins. But he couldn't. He was not only the venerable sovereign of the Nirvana realm. There was also another layer, an even more noble identity. A long time ago, she had often heard people talking about it. The greater one's ability, the greater the responsibility. Although to Diemo Xian, what happened to others had nothing to do with him. However, with his strength and status, he would not allow himself to be willful, even if it had nothing to do with him. I have to get involved too. Look at the tiredness in his eyes. Look at the dark circles under his eyes. It was clearly for his responsibility, so that he could meet her as soon as possible. That was why he was so desperate. How could she bear to blame Diemo Xian? Her heart ached for Diemo Xian. But in Diemo Xian's eyes, that was Lil Luo. Her silence was definitely because she was blaming him. Lil Luo, don't stay silent. Hit me if you're unhappy. I'll let you hit me. Don't ignore me. Diemo Xian grabbed Yiqing Luo's little hand and swung it towards his face. Diemo Xian, who had never coaxed a woman before. The Diemo Xian who could flirt with Yiqing Luo in minutes. At this moment, he was like a child who had done something wrong, using such a childish method to coax Yiqing Luo. She was really angry at the bottom of her heart. At this moment, they would probably be so amused that they would vanish into thin air. All right. Stop fooling around. Yiqing Luo forcefully retracted her hand. How could she bear to hit him? Who asked me to choose such an outstanding man? What else can I do? Even if he's kneeling, I'll still pamper him. Yiqing Luo's words made Diemo Xian stunned. Why did these words sound so strange? But her heart was filled with sweetness. Chapter 2497. Stop. Stop. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and covered the man's lips. The scorching lips were imprinted on her palm. The scorching sensation made her feel as though she had touched a burning flame. Her cheeks were once again dyed crimson red. Stop fooling around. Where are we now? Yiqing Luo glared at him coquettishly. Her brows were filled with a young lady's charm. Only in front of Diemo Xian, and only Diemo Xian alone, could see this Yiqing Luo. Ah Xian, do you know where we are? While Yiqing Luo was talking to Diemo Xian, she sized up the surroundings. As far as the eye could see, it was an empty piece of jade light. Apart from the jade green light, there was nothing else. just as Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian and looked around. Not sure if it was her misconception. Somehow, Dmo Xian's body stiffened slightly for a moment. She was stunned as she turned back to look at Dmo Xian in puzzlement. What she met was a pair of peach blossom eyes filled with warmth. His thin lips curved into an extremely shallow arc, and his gaze was deep and serene, as if he wanted to imprint her deeply into his mind. Yiqing Luo's heart had an inexplicable fluster. She instinctively grabbed Dmo Xian's collar tightly. Slender fingers hooked onto his. Xian, are you hiding something from me? She understood her man too well. Dmo Xian must have something to hide from her. Moreover, this matter was related to her, and this piece of jade light world. Dmo Xian didn't answer. Under the light, the man's deep and handsome face revealed a hazy and dreamy brilliance. She couldn't see clearly the expression on his face. The only thing she could see was the deep affection and pampering in his eyes. Xian. Not waiting for a reply, Yiqing Luo's heart instantly panicked. The hand that held Dmo Xian tightened even more. After a long time in the jade light, the man's magnetic voice rang beside her ear. Nothing. He spat out 2 words. Lowering his head, his warm breath slowly seeped into her earlobe. The young lady's petite body uncontrollably trembled slightly. Her grip on his collar loosened as well. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Dmo Xian gently held her hand as he explained in a gentle voice. His heart was beating normally. His voice was also very normal. It was as if that moment of shock and speechlessness was just an illusion. Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around his waist. She inhaled the sandalwood fragrance from his body. Only then did he slowly calm himself down. The 2 elders of the Bu family used their own lives to open the seal of the Miao tribe's forbidden land for you. Dmo Xian felt the breathing of the young lady in his arms, gradually becoming smoother, and between his brows, a trace of a relieved smile flashed past. His large palm gently patted the girl's delicate back. His eyes were quiet and unblinking, almost greedily looking at everything about her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened at the mention of the Bu family's 2 elders. Her little hands tightened as she clasped onto Dmo Xian's wrist and raised her head from his embrace. This is the inside of the seal? She remembered when the emerald light had covered the sky and covered the earth. Miao Yixiong shouted that the seal was unlocked. Following that, her consciousness was swallowed by the power of the seal. In the end, she seemed to have sensed Dmo Xian's arrival. Dmo Xian had rushed over in time to save her, and even brought her to the inside of the seal. Chapter 2498. Yiqing Luo didn't understand the deeper meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. The next moment, she felt her body turning light. A heavy kiss landed on her lips. The man's breathing was heavy as he bit down harshly. Yiqing Luo frowned in pain as she raised her fist to push him. But before she could even raise her hand, the man had already loosened his grip on her. Lil Luo, or wait for me to come back. A light and ethereal voice floated in his ears. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled as she steadied herself, and immediately stretched out her hand to grab Dmo Xian. But there was only air in her hand. The jade-green light enveloped, and the man's purple robe was faintly discernible. His handsome face was filled with reluctance to part with her. Xian. Yiqing Luo grabbed Dmo Xian once again as her tone was anxious. But her hand couldn't touch Dmo Xian at all. As the jade-green light grew stronger, the man's figure started to dissipate. I miss you so. I will return to your side immediately. The last silent sentence was clearly transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. Xian. Xian. Yiqing Luo shouted Dmo Xian's name loudly, but what pounced forward was still air. The man's figure had completely disappeared before her eyes. Only a faint sandalwood fragrance was left, proving that he had indeed existed. Xian. Yiqing Luo stared blankly at the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. Her legs turned soft as she knelt on the ground. Her eyes were empty as she frowned, not understanding what was going on. Why, he was still fine earlier, telling each other how much they missed each other. He even passionately did that kind of thing. Why did it suddenly disappear? He said there was something important to her in this seal? But what was it? Could it be more important than him? Rumble. Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded in his ears. Following that, Yiqing Luo's body shook violently. The ground beneath her feet was shaking. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She immediately steadied herself as she surveyed the surroundings vigilantly. Under the boundless jade light, Yiqing Luo totally couldn't see what kind of earth-shaking and mountain-shaking scene was. She could feel the ground beneath her feet cracking open with a schwa-schwa-schwa sound. But even if he lowered his head to look, what entered his eyes was a green light. She felt like she was in a green space. He couldn't see heaven and earth, he couldn't see everything, but the cracking feeling under his feet was especially obvious. At the same time, one of her feet stepped on empty air, and she staggered. She followed her instincts and moved her feet. Old man's song, just what is this place? While following the aura, she quickly avoided the area where the ground had split open while contacting Old Man's song. However, her connection with Old Man's song seemed to have been cut off. She couldn't sense the aura within the azure dew bracelet at all. Boom. Another dull rumble rang out. Compared to before, the tremor was even more intense. The rumbling seemed to come from under his feet. Yiqing Luo was swayed so much that she almost lost her footing, swaying left and right to maintain her own balance. Hiss! A piercing buzzing sound shook Yiqing Luo's eardrums. Her brain was pierced by waves of pain. Yiqing Luo's slender brows tightened as she felt the feeling of the ground splitting open. She leaped up and quickly rolled backwards. Bam! Her back bumped into something hard. That hard feeling, Yiqing Luo couldn't use words to describe. Chapter 2499. Damn it! What the hell was this place? Xian, that bastard. After bringing her here, he disappeared on his own. Even if she were to meet with any opportunities here, he still had to make it clear to her. Now she was in a state of complete confusion. Yiqing Luo's eyebrows twitched in pain. She shifted her body and stretched out her hand to touch behind her. When she touched it, it was a hard and cold thing. It was very smooth, but at a distance there would be some bumps. Very hard, very hard. Yiqing Luo was confident that she could break a wall with one punch. But when she touched this thing, Yiqing Luo could conclude that this thing was even sturdier than those Supreme Being grade or God grade armors. Suddenly, that hard thing seemed to move. The ear-piercing buzz in her ears once again shook her eardrums. Hiss hiss, an extremely close distance. Yiqing Luo felt that her eardrums were about to burst. She subconsciously raised her hand and covered her ears. But her hand, once that dog left that hard thing, her body suddenly felt light. Her feet seemed to have stepped on empty air, and instantly fell down. F***K. This series of changes made Yiqing Luo unable to hold back, and burst out a vulgar word. What a F***King husky. This was a piece of jade green space. She couldn't see anything clearly. She couldn't sense anything. She was completely unable to determine how long this kind of fall would last. She had just fallen into a 1,000-meter hole. Now it was here again, life or death unknown. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to complain or complain. She took a deep breath and forced herself to concentrate, gathering the profound energy into her legs, ready to land safely. Roar, roar, roar. An earth-shattering roar went straight to the 9 heavens. The familiar sound made Yiqing Luo's concentration stagnate. Chi-Chi. Did she hear it wrongly? Why did she seem to hear Chi-Chi's tiger roar? Roar. As if responding to her words, the wild roar was heard once again. Following that, her body was caught by a ball of soft fur. Chi-Chi. Is it really you? Yiqing Luo's hands hugged the soft thing beneath her. The familiar smell and touch. It was indeed Chi-Chi. Master, the childish voice was indeed Chi-Chi's voice. Yiqing Luo sat properly on Chi-Chi's back. Why did you come out? How is your body? Old Man Song said that you and Chi Yan are asleep because you are evolving. What do you think? Chi-Chi, whom he had not seen for a long time, finally appeared in front of him again. Yiqing Luo was extremely touched. A piece of his heart was finally put down. Chi Yan, it woke up too? We're all fine. It's all thanks to Master's heaven-returning nether pill. Chi-Chi smiled and wagged his tail. We don't need little Chi here. Chi-Chi will protect Master. Yiqing Luo rubbed Chi-Chi's back. Chi-Chi, do you know what this place is? I don't know. Chi-Chi answered its master's question honestly. It carried Yiqing Luo on its back as it ran forward aimlessly and said, But here. There's a very familiar scent. If Chi-Chi didn't smell wrongly, Master will be able to see your new companion very soon. New companion? Chi-Chi's words made Yiqing Luo slightly stunned. In her mind, the image of Chi Yan suddenly appeared. A thought gradually formed in her mind. Chapter 2500. She didn't know how long Chi-Chi had been running with her. Yiqing Luo only saw a piece of green in front of her. She didn't know where Chi-Chi had taken her. Master, do you feel it? Chi-Chi seemed to be very excited. Its tail kept swaying. The strength was so great that Yiqing Luo could feel the wind from the swaying tail. Yiqing Luo said that she didn't feel anything except the wind. Chi-Chi's mood suddenly lost a lot. You really don't feel it? Yiqing Luo facebombed. What did Xiao-Qi want her to feel? Could it be a call prompt? Chi-Chi leaped and seemed to be circling around something, striding its limbs again. Strange. How could Master not feel it? After several laps, Yiqing Luo expressed a face of confusion. You stupid tiger. A clear voice sounded out of thin air. Chi-Chi's tiger body shook. Little Chi-Chi. If you say Chi-Chi is stupid, Chi-Chi will. Chi-Chi's little voice was soft and cute. After holding it for a long time, Yiqing Luo thought that Chi-Chi would fight back with great lethality, only to hear Chi-Chi roaring angrily. Chi-Chi also wants to call you stupid bird. Yiqing Luo. My Chi-Chi is amazing, worthy of being her family's pure and lovely little thing. I said you are stupid, you still don't admit it? Chi Yan's disdainful voice with arrogance. What do you want the ugly woman to feel? She is not a sacred beast. Yiqing Luo. She had already become her war pet. Could she show some respect to her as a war pet? Chi-Chi whispered woo-woo, seemed to be very wronged by Chi Yan's scolding. The woman who was ignored by the two sacred beasts cleared her throat and rubbed Chi-Chi's head with her little hand. Don't talk in riddles, what do I need to do? Let's hurry up. Listening to the conversation between Chi-Chi and Chi Yan. Obviously, these two people knew where they were. Chi Yan snorted, his tone was full of disgust. Stupid tiger, don't follow the ugly woman, just throw her down. Chi Yan didn't show up, still in the pet space. But just listening to its tone, Yiqing Luo could almost imagine the arrogant and disdainful look on Chi Yan's face. Yiqing Luo expressed that as the owner of a Tsundra war pet, it was really too sad. Throw her off. Was he going to enjoy the thrill of falling from a high altitude again, and not knowing when he would land? Chi-Chi, don't be influenced by Chi-Aojiao. My Chi-Chi loves you the most. Yiqing Luo was just about to hug Chi-Chi's neck to express Chi-Chi's gentleness, and not to be in cahoots with a certain arrogant bird. However, before he could finish his words, her body felt light, and then she fell from the sky as she was familiar with it. Chi-Chi really threw her down from her back. Didn't you say not to learn bad things from Chi-Aojiao? Why was Chi-Chi so obedient to Chi-Aojiao? Yiqing Luo had yet to gather her profound energy again. Then he felt a powerful force coming down on him. Her pupils reflected an extremely gorgeous green brilliance. Bang! That ray of jade light fiercely crashed onto Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo only felt a strong numbing pain all over her body. Her vision turned black and she fainted. Chi-Chi, who was standing by the side, stared at Yiqing Luo, who was wrapped in a piece of jade light, worriedly. The current Yiqing Luo, suspended in mid-air. Numerous jade lights entangled her bit by bit. Chapter 2501. It's all right. Chi Yan replied indifferently. If she can't even bear this bit of power, then what qualifications does she have to be our master? Chi-Chi's eyes widened as it shook its head in disapproval. Little Chi-Chi, what you said is wrong. No matter what master is or how powerful she is Chi-Chi's master. It was not because of its master's ability that it became its master's battle pet. It really liked its master. It was willing to stay by its master's side and protect her. Qi Yin didn't speak again for a moment. Chi was a little angry because of what Qi Yin said earlier, and didn't want to bother with Qi Yin anymore. It stared at its master without blinking, like a knight, guarding its master. Yiqing Luo was in a daze. She only felt that there was a voice in her mind, constantly clamoring. She wanted to hear clearly whose voice it was. But that voice was illusory and she couldn't hear it clearly. The only thing she could be sure of was, it was that voice that kept calling her name. There seemed to be something in her chest, like a whirlpool fiercely stirring. Following that, she felt as if something had surged into her body. Her whole body was swollen and painful. She groaned in pain. The clamoring in her mind became louder and noisier at this moment. What was that voice saying? Why did it keep calling her name? In a daze, Yiqing Luo saw a dash of jade light, flickering in front of her eyes. She frowned, trying to see more clearly. But she only saw that wisp of jade light, turned into jade fog, slowly seeping into her heart. At the same time, a surge of majestic power, like an avalanche, filled her limbs and bones. The heaven and earth spiritual qi crazily swam in her body. Ah! Yiqing Luo cried out in pain from the impact of this surging power. The next moment, she suddenly opened her eyes. Her body was like a spring, sitting upright. The moment she opened her eyes, a ray of jade light shot out from her eyes. Master! Seeing Yiqing Luo open her eyes, Chi immediately went forward, its tiger eyes looking at Yiqing Luo. However, Yiqing Luo didn't have the energy to answer it. The moment she opened her eyes, she noticed the changes in her body. She quickly sat down cross-legged. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the barrier of advancement. Ever since she advanced to the sky profound realm, no matter how much heaven and earth spiritual energy she absorbed, no matter how fast her profound strength grew, she couldn't even advance. And this time, he had been stuck at the profound rank for so long. Finally, there were signs of advancement. Was this the opportunity that Xian had mentioned? Numerous profound energy was guided by Yiqing Luo in his body. As it flowed bit by bit, the majestic and turbulent energy was getting stronger and stronger. It was like a whirlpool that came one after another. Boom! In Yiqing Luo's mind, a sudden clap of thunder exploded. The profound energy that was swirling around his body shook as well. Following that, it slowly merged into Yiqing Luo's body. Everything in the surroundings gradually regained its tranquility. Yiqing Luo's breathing also calmed down. She slowly opened her eyes. Her enchanting eyes twinkled, causing her disguised face to look even more dazzling. She exhaled a breath of foul air. Her entire body was filled with a refreshing feeling. Master! Chi cried out in joy, striding forward on its forelimbs, as it flew to Yiqing Luo's side. No wonder she was its master. Chapter 2502. Chi. Yiqing Luo hugged Chi's head. That plump tiger head. Yiqing Luo couldn't even hug it with one hand. But Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers grabbed onto Chi's fur as she raised her brows. Little Chi, who is your master? Qiao Jiao asked you to throw me away, and you threw me away just like that? When the last word was spat out, Yiqing Luo intentionally emphasized the ending. Chi's huge tiger body shuddered slightly. The huge tiger eyes immediately revealed an aggrieved expression. Master! Sob. Chi didn't do it on purpose. Her childish voice was filled with a sense of grievance. Saying that, it even used its head and rubbed against Yiqing Luo's body bit by bit. A tiger as huge as a mountain was acting cute in front of her. What kind of feeling was that? Yiqing Luo expressed that she had raised a big cat. Speak. Why must you listen to Qiao Jiao? Yiqing Luo's heart was softened by Chi's cute actions, but she pretended to be angry on the surface. This little fellow obviously knew what this place was, and what the opportunity that Xian mentioned was. But it refused to say anything, not letting this little fellow explain anything. Even her own war pet, her own little fellow, could do little tricks behind her back. Was she still considered as a qualified master? As expected, when it saw Yiqing Luo's straight face, Chi-Chi immediately cried and acted cute, because Chi-Chi wants to help master. Under Chi-Chi's childish explanation, Yiqing Luo finally understood. This sealed ground, what kind of place was it? She finally understood. YDMO Xian said that this was her opportunity, and the reason why Chi-Chi and Chi-Yin would appear here. So the Miao tribe's forbidden land was sealed. It was one of the 4 sacred beasts. Black Tortoise. Just earlier, after Chi-Chi and Black Tortoise had a short contact, Chi-Chi then understood the reason why the Black Tortoise was sealed here. 700 years ago, Black Tortoise, which had been in deep slumber, was awakened by a summon near the Miao tribe village, a sacred beast which could summon the wind and rain. In this lower plane there was no master to control them. Since it did not differentiate between good and evil, it naturally did as it pleased without any apprehension, and stirred up a storm in the Nirvana realm. However, even though it was one of the 4 great divine beasts, it had been in a deep slumber for too long after all. The spiritual energy in the lower realm was not as pure as it used to be. The Black Tortoise consumed too much energy, when he couldn't replenish his spiritual qi. At that time, the holy maiden of the Miaogu clan had used a forbidden art of the Miaogu clan to seal the Black Tortoise under the Miaogu clan. She had left behind an ancestral teaching to suppress the seal for generations to come. And this time, the arrival of Yiqing Luo and the 2 Bu elders coincidentally unlocked the Black Tortoise's seal. Yiqing Luo and the 2 sacred beasts had already signed the contract. Her blood could naturally cause the Black Tortoise to react. That drop of blood from Yiqing Luo had unlocked the first layer of Black Tortoise's seal. Then, the 2 elders of the Bu family used their true feelings as a sacrifice to open the second layer of the seal. He successfully awakened the Black Tortoise. And because of that, there was that scene earlier. So to say, you listened to Qi Ao Jiao's words and threw me down, just to let me contract the Black Tortoise? Yiqing Luo understood the meaning behind Chi-Chi's words. Chi-Chi valued her, just like how she valued Chi-Chi. Chapter 2503. I'm not contracting the Black Tortoise either. Chi-Chi mumbled softly. The Black Tortoise's temperament is different from ours. It doesn't differentiate between good and evil. Everything depends on its own preferences. Yiqing Luo pinched Chi-Chi's ears. In that case, you're not sure if Black Tortoise will accept me, so you threw me down? Chi-Chi blinked its intelligent tiger eyes. Chi-Chi believes that as long as its master, he will definitely be able to find the Black Tortoise. Saying that, he carefully sized up Yiqing Luo's expression. Seeing that Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change, he hurriedly added another sentence. Master can even contract that bad-tempered little Chi-Chi, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to contract Black Tortoise. After the little guy woke up, his ability to act coquettishly and flatter had increased. Yiqing Luo pinched Chi-Chi's face, and didn't continue to argue with Chi-Chi over this point. Instead, she grasped the main point of Chi-Chi's words and asked, You said you found the Black Tortoise. Found? What do you mean? Chi-Chi said that she had succeeded. But Yiqing Luo didn't sense the presence of the Black Tortoise in the pet space. Furthermore, she could not even sense the Black Tortoise's aura. Therefore, she did not contract the Black Tortoise. Only half of the Black Tortoise's soul is sealed here. Chi-Chi lowered her head and said softly, Half a soul? Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled that when she was in a daze, she saw a smear of jade-green fog. Could that be the Black Tortoise's soul? Chi-Chi seemed to have seen through the doubt in Yiqing Luo's heart as it nodded its big tiger head. Black Tortoise has accepted Master. That's why it willingly sent its soul into Master's profound heart jade. It was no wonder that after the green mist entered her heart, she felt that powerful force almost burst her meridians. She was promoted. It was also because he had absorbed the Black Tortoise's soul. Master can first use the profound heart jade to nurture the Black Tortoise's soul. When you find the other half of the Black Tortoise's soul, Master can form a contract with the Black Tortoise. There was a trace of excitement in Chi-Chi's voice. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and gently pressed on the area where her heart was. He sensed the extremely quiet soul within the profound heart jade. She sighed. I see. Moreover, Black Tortoise was Chi-Chi and Chi-Yan's brother. Seeing how excited Chi-Chi was, it was as if she was about to meet her best friend. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't bear to reject him. What's more, she had contracted the Black Tortoise, which was beneficial to her. However, Yi-Ching Luo recalled that Jun Qinggu had once told her about another way to head to the upper realm. Now, the three sacred beasts were all in her hands. In other words, even the heavens were helping her make the choice. He helped her choose to collect the sacred beast beads and open the path to the upper realm. Master, the Black Tortoise's soul is already in your profound heart jade. The Miao tribe seal has also been broken. Very soon this place will collapse. Chi-Chi will bring you out of here first. Chi-Chi used her head to nudge Yi-Ching Luo and reminded her. Yi-Ching Luo nodded and quickly leaped onto Chi-Chi's back. Rumble. Almost at the same time, a violent earthquake broke out in the surroundings. Countless explosions rang out. Chi-Chi's four limbs moved as it sprinted upwards. Boom. Yi-Ching Luo felt something collapsing behind her. For some reason, she turned around to take a look. Chapter 2504. That stone statue was extremely huge. It was at least one size bigger than Chi-Chi's current form. It looked like a huge tortoise. Its entire body was wrapped in a hard tortoise shell. The most horrifying thing was, on that huge tortoise shell, there were two snake-like and dragon-like things. Boom boom. It was another earth-shattering sound. The stone statue broke apart and fell down. Yi-Ching Luo saw it. That pair of jade green eyes was especially bright in the jade light. Bam! Yi-Ching Luo only felt a gust of bone-piercing wind brushing past her face. The body that was sitting on Chi-Chi's back was flung out violently. Ching Luo. A few familiar voices rang in her ears. Immediately she saw a slender figure flying over and catching her steadily. The impact of Yi-Ching Luo being flung out was rather strong. Both of them retreated more than 10 meters before they managed to stabilize themselves. Yi-Ching Luo felt a little dizzy as she shook her head and raised her eyes. She met with a cold and beautiful face. Little Wu Wu. Yi-Ching Luo smiled. Jun Qingwu's face was icy cold as she let go of her hand. Steady yourself. Yi-Ching Luo felt that this attitude was like a domineering CEO. Her feet were standing on the ground. She could feel the real feeling of standing on the ground. Yi-Ching Luo finally had a feeling of being revived. After she stabilized herself, she immediately sensed Chi-Chi's direction. Chi-Chi, are you all right? The moment they came out of the Forbidden Grounds, the Forbidden Grounds exploded automatically. This caused a human and a beast to be flung out. Chi-Chi's body was huge, and the sacred beast's agility was hundreds of times stronger than a human. After it was flung out, it quickly stabilized itself, just as it was about to catch its master. But it discovered its master was being carried in the arms of a beautiful sister. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes in shock. Master is with the beautiful sister behind the overlord's back. Yi-Ching Luo. Huh? Jun Qingwu. The surrounding crowd. Ha ha ha. Chi-Chi, go back and have a good rest. Yi-Ching Luo felt that the little fellow's words were too shocking and decisively recalled Chi-Chi back into the pet space. Not long after Chi-Chi woke up, he had also spent too much energy in the forbidden area. He returned to the pet space. Yan Xiaoyi and the others crowded around. Ching Luo, are you all right? The few of them surrounded Yi-Ching Luo and sized her up. After confirming that there were no wounds on Yi-Ching Luo's body, he was finally relieved. Outside of the crowd, Guiwu glanced at Yi-Ching Luo indifferently. Promoted? Does this mean that you've already gotten the opportunity that Dizun mentioned? Guiwu's words. Only then did everyone realize. Yi-Ching Luo's entire temperament had another layer of rebirth. That pair of charming eyes was still clear and enchanting, but there was a trace of unfathomable brilliance in them. Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that her mouth was agape. My God, Ching Luo, you're simply too abnormal. How long has it been? You've advanced a grade again? One must know that Yi-Ching Luo was a sky-profound cultivator. The sky profound realm could be said to be the God realm in everyone's mind. Advancing to the next rank was much more difficult than advancing to the next rank. Yiqing Luo actually advanced again. This group of ordinary people had been devastated to the point that they had nothing left to live for. Yiqing Luo nodded and raised her eyes to look at the indifferent Gui Wu. I have something to ask you. Gui Wu saw through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Want to ask about the Overlord? Chapter 2505. Yiqing Luo had always known that Gui Wu was absolutely not just a martial arts fanatic from the lower realm, or a grandmaster who guided his students. Dmo Xian was mentioned. Even Yan Xiaoyi fell silent. Yiqing Luo saw that the few of them didn't look too good. Her heart sank. Suddenly, he recalled the scene of Dmo Xian disappearing in the Forbidden Land. Her heart tightened, and when she opened her mouth again, her voice was a bit hoarse. Did something happen to Xian? Otherwise, Xian would not have left her at that time. When Xian was in the Forbidden Land, something was obviously wrong. His entire person was like a gust of wind, disappearing into thin air. Something did happen. Gui Wu did not beat around the bush. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped fiercely as her complexion instantly turned pale, and her petite body unconsciously swayed. What nonsense are you talking about? The Overlord's brother-in-law is not in trouble. Kitty Lee couldn't bear to see her own sister in such a state as she immediately struggled out of Zomo's restraint, wanting to comfort Yiqing Luo. Zomo tightened his arms, narrowed his phoenix eyes, and whispered in her ear, "Little wildcat, be good and let me hold you. Don't talk, okay?" The rising tone of his voice had a devilish charm to it. Kitty Lee's ears were sensitive, so when Zomo's warm breath brushed past her, her delicate body immediately went soft. She blushed and hit his arm. Frivolous man, let go of Kitty Lee. Kitty wants to accompany big sister. You said it yourself. Dizun is fine. Won't she be more worried that something has happened to Dizun if you're in such a hurry to accompany her? Zoemo raised his eyebrows. Kitty Lee was stunned and bit her lower lip. In the end, she stopped struggling and looked at Yiqing Luo seriously. Sister, Overlord brother-in-law is really fine. He wouldn't bear to make you unhappy. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and waved away the image of Dmo Xian's disappearance that kept replaying in her mind. Master Gui Wu, the Xian who accompanied me in the forbidden area just now, isn't the real Xian, right? Actually, when Dmo Xian disappeared, she already had a trace of conjecture in her heart. However, she deliberately buried all her guesses in the bottom of her heart and pretended not to notice. Yes. Gui Wu's reply was straightforward, concise and comprehensive, as he calmly told her about the matter regarding Dmo Xian and his doppelganger. Yiqing Luo quietly listened to Gui Wu's words. The expression on his face was very calm. However, every single word that Gui Wu said, every single sentence, Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was pricked by needles. He actually left a trace of his consciousness in her pendant to protect her. From start to finish, he had never left her side. Compared to the Nirvana realm, the place he was heading to was the upper realm. It was such a dangerous place. He was still taking such risks. Just to protect her. This man, why did he always do things that made her both angry and touched? Gui Wu had said it before. In the forbidden area, Dmo Xian had already exhausted a lot of energy to contend against the seal power set by the Miao tribe's ancestors. Then, in order to protect her, he safely entered the sealed land. Moreover, it consumed a large amount of his own strength. In other words, when Dmo Xian disappeared at the end, this was the last trace of his remaining consciousness and strength in her. Ever since they entered the seal, Dmo Xian had been using his strength to block the swallowing of the seal's power. He knew that with Chi and Chi Yin around, Black Tortoise's seal power could not hurt him at all. He had exhausted all his strength. Chapter 2506. That silly man just wanted to spend more time with her. The doppelganger was damaged. His body would also be damaged. All of his power was spent on the seal. Would his real body in the upper realm affect the things he handled in the upper realm? The more Yi Qingluo thought, the more her heart trembled. Qingluo. Yan Xiaoyi saw Yi Qingluo not speaking for a long time, and her pair of eyes had already turned red as she called out softly with heartache. Yi Qingluo blinked her eyes as she pushed back the sour feeling in her nose. I'm fine. If I were him, I would also do the same. That was right if it was her. In order to spend more time with Dmo Xian, she would make the same choice. She understood Dmo Xian's choice. It was just that her heart ached for him. Her heart ached and she missed him. Let's leave this place first. This is the Miao tribe after all. Xiao Jin looked around. Perhaps it was because this was a forbidden place for the Miao tribe. Such a huge commotion had occurred. Not a single Miao tribesman came over. I'm not leaving, Miao Yi said in a choked voice. She clenched her fists tightly, her bloodshot eyes burning with the flames of hatred. I want to kill Miao Yixiong and avenge the people of Bu village. Yi Qingluo thought of those two old men. In order not to drag her down, they resolutely chose to leap into the seal. She took a deep breath and looked at Miao Yi calmly. If you want revenge, you have to live. Miao Yi's body trembled and tensed up. Let's go. After Yi Qingluo finished her words, she didn't wait for the others to react as she walked towards the exit of the Miao tribe. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest followed a few steps forward. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Miao Yi, who was standing on the spot with her fists tightly clenched. He opened his mouth a few times, wanting to call out to Miao Yi, but looking at Yi Qingluo's departing back view without hesitation. In the end, he didn't say anything and turned around to chase after Yi Qingluo's footsteps. After walking for about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the sound of hurried footsteps came from behind them. Very quickly, that man chased up to Yi Qingluo and opened up his arms, blocking her path. Big Sister Luo, I beg you. Avenge the people of the Bu family village. Miao Yi's bloodshot eyes stared at Yi Qingluo without blinking. Sister Luo was right. If he wanted revenge, he had to stay alive. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to kill the Miao tribe leader. He would only be throwing his life away. She knew. The only person who could help her was Sister Luo. Yi Qingluo stopped in her tracks as her gaze fell firmly onto Miao Yi. Her gaze was like a torch, as if she could see through Miao Yi's soul. Miao Yi felt a little uneasy under his gaze. After a long time, he finally heard Yi Qingluo opening her mouth. Even if you don't mention it, I will take revenge for the Bu family village. Miao Yi's outstretched arm stiffened. Then he slowly lowered his head. No matter what, I still thank you. Don't you want to take revenge personally? Yi Qingluo lowered her eyes and looked at the depressed girl. Miao Yi's eyes brightened, but soon dimmed again. I want to, but I can't. There's no such thing as whether I can or cannot, only whether I want to or not. Yi Qingluo interrupted Miao Yi's words. As long as you want, I can let you take revenge personally and let the Miao Gu family be consigned to eternal damnation. But I have a request. Hearing Yi Qingluo's words, the light in Miao Yi's eyes grew brighter. She raised her head and her eyes were filled with determination. As long as I can take revenge personally, I will agree to anything you say. Chapter 2507. The group returned to the Peach Blossom restaurant. Seeing so many old friends in the Heavenly Academy, Peach was naturally excited and arranged a good room for everyone. Yi Qingluo also found out from the few of them what happened in the Heavenly Academy after she left. Everything was as she had expected. The headmaster of the Heavenly Profound Academy was removed from his position. Furthermore, he was forcefully sent to the South Wave continent by the headquarters and imprisoned in the headquarters to suffer. Regarding this news, Yi Qingluo wasn't surprised. Before she left, she had specially set up a trap for the Heavenly Dean. What the Heavenly Dean cared about the most was his Dean position. The most severe punishment for Dean Xian wasn't to let him die. Instead, she wanted him to lose everything that he had worked so hard to obtain. She made use of the incident at Shangshuan Temple to let Yun Xiang and Si Yanmu collude to kill the Dean. She appeared to save Dean Xian and used him to leave Yun Xiang first. Before he left, He instructed Yan Xiaoyi to divulge the matter of the Heavenly Dean colluding with the dark forces. 1 or 2 elite students would go missing in the Heavenly Academy every month. The reason why the Heavenly Academy would force students to leave school for 3 days every month. The trip to the South Wave continent and the Blazing Nest were all part of the Dean's and the Dark Forces' plan to undo the King of Darkness seal. No matter how secretive the Heavenly Dean was in the past, there would still be some slip-ups. Coupled with some evidence which Yiqing Luo had intentionally forged. Truth and falsehood, the Heavenly Dean would definitely be destroyed. Then, has the headquarters mentioned who the newly appointed Heavenly Profound Principal is? Yiqing Luo asked with a smile after she heard everyone's words. Yan Xiaoyi's face was full of smiles as she blinked her eyes mysteriously. Guess. It's definitely someone you wouldn't expect. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows and confidently said, "It's Master Guiyu." Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened as she covered her eyes and fell into Qiao Jin's embrace. "Can't you let me play mysterious for once? How did you know it was Dean Guiyu?" Yiqing Luo smiled. Ever since she set up a trap to destroy the Heavenly Dean, she had already predicted that the next president of the Heavenly Academy would be Old Man Guiyu. Yiqing Luo felt it. Old Man Guiyu had special feelings towards the Heavenly Academy. If it was Guiyu, the Heavenly Academy would continue to be at its peak and sit firmly on the honor of being the best academy. Yes, the new dean is Dean Guiyu. Yan Xiaoyi looked at Yiqing Luo's unfathomable smile as she rubbed her head against Qiao Jin's shoulder with a bored look. The main courtyard has also agreed to let Dean Guiyu take on the role of Heavenly Dean, and the Dean certificate has also been handed over to Dean Guiyu. Qiao Jin stroked her head, his eyes filled with love. Following that, his gaze slowly shifted onto Yiqing Luo. "I heard that Dean Guiyu and the previous dean were best friends. Did you know about this long ago? Otherwise, how could Yiqing Luo be so sure that Old Man Guiyu would take over the position of the former director?" Yiqing Luo nodded. "Ever since Teacher Guiyu came to our devil class as a teacher, I already knew that there was a deep past between Teacher Guiyu and the previous director. Yes, I heard that when Dean Guiyu wanted to be a teacher in the devil class, the previous dean refused to let go no matter what. In the end, it was Dean Guiyu who agreed to do something. Dean Guiyu almost lost his life, and the previous dean then allowed Dean Guiyu to be a teacher in the devil class." Chapter 2508. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. She knew that Old Man Guiyu was here to teach devil class. He must have made some sort of deal with the former dean. But he didn't expect. He had almost lost his life. Thinking of Old Man Guiyu's crazed face, her heart softened. Teacher Guiyu being the dean is the best outcome. Yiqing Luo's brows curved. After the matters in Northern Tide Continent are settled, we will return to the academy and celebrate with Teacher Guiyu. Yan Xiaoyi grunted heavily. This time Slut Jean, Shadow and I came to the Northern Waves continent, firstly to see you, and secondly, to represent the Heavenly Academy to attend the birthday banquet of the Qinghua sect lord. Yiqing Luo roughly guessed the reason why they would appear here. Just hearing it from their own mouths, she was still a little surprised. After all, Yan Xiaoyi and the rest were merely students of the Heavenly Academy. In terms of qualifications and status, it was not the turn of the devil class students to be the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. With Old Man Guiyu's habit of protecting his children, it didn't matter if the devil class students were qualified or not. If Old Man Guiyu said so, no one would dare to object. Old Man Guiyu must be worried that she would not be able to lead a stable life in the North Wave continent. He also knew that the students of the devil class all missed him. That was why he had to withstand the pressure from the entire academy to appoint Yan Xiaoyi and the rest as the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. Yan Xiaoyi noticed her gaze and replied, "Master Guiwu and young Master Emo are here to participate in the Qinghua sect master's birthday banquet." Guiyu was worried that the three of us might encounter danger, so he asked Master Guiwu and young Master Emo to accompany us. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her gaze turned into a teasing one. If I remember correctly, as a martial arts fanatic, ghost martial artist would never participate in any birthday banquets or grand ceremonies. even if the sect master personally invited him. The ghost martial artist might not give him any face. This time, he traveled thousands of miles from the South Continent to the West Continent, and from the West Continent all the way to the North Continent. She looked at Zoemo with a teasing gaze. Gui Wu had definitely followed Zoemo here. As for Zoemo, clearly they were here for Kitty Lee. In order to chase after his wife, Zoemo was really going all out. In order to support his brother, the ghost martial artist was quite strenuous. 3 days later, on the birthday of the Qin Yu sect's sect master, since last night, the city had been bustling with noise and excitement. The crackling of the firecrackers never stopped. There were also all kinds of festive bands roaming the streets and alleys. The city was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Melodious music was being played, and the atmosphere was joyous. The commoners had filled up the streets and alleys of the Qinghua sect, and they were all talking about the deeds of the Qinghua sect's sect master. Of course, this didn't mean that the Qinghua sect was a living bodhisattva in the eyes of the commoners. But because today, all the nobles and officials from different continents would gather in the Joy City, they naturally wanted to let the people of the other continents see the respect they had for the Qinyu sect. Every commoner had the heart to protect their own continent. They were all unwilling to let the people of other continents look down on their own continent. As a result, the citizens cheered even more fervently. Of course, there were also people from other continents who came to the Northern Wave continent to attend the birthday banquet. He had also put in a lot of effort to highlight the prosperity of his continent. On the streets, all kinds of luxurious carriages and top-grade horses galloped about. Chapter 2509. Although the street was crowded, people still lined up in an orderly manner. After all, everyone wanted to maintain their elegance and quality, so as not to be criticized. Giving way to each other was courteous and respectful. However, such a peaceful appearance, it was broken after the arrival of a group of people. There were about 30 people in that group of people. The guards were dressed in glittering golden clothes, and the weapons in their hands were so sharp that they could blind people's eyes. Surrounded in the middle by the guards was an extremely luxurious and noble carriage. Above the carriage, there was a white veil. In the haze, there was an enchanting figure. This group of people walked extremely proudly, with their heads held high and their chests puffed out, and their steps were powerful. If it was any other time, from the looks of it, this pair of people had a mighty aura that made people envious. But on this occasion, they were all high-ranking officials and dignitaries from various continents. Their attitude was simply a joke. This was especially true for this group of people. They were charging forward without any misgivings at all. They had a posture of, "I am opening this road, everyone get out of the way." Although the distinguished guests from other continents were unhappy, in order to maintain their demeanor, they naturally took the initiative to make way. But this behavior of maintaining demeanor, in the eyes of this group of people, that was, everyone was afraid of their power. The common people already couldn't help but whisper to each other, "What kind of big shot is that? They look very arrogant." That's right. Why are so many distinguished guests making way for them? Some people guessed the identity of that group of people. Some people sneered disdainfully. "What big shot? I think they don't know what is polite at all." That's right, putting on an air of supremacy, they really think they are big shots. This extravagant and exaggerated posture, no matter how you look at it, it's just pretentious. Soon, someone recognized the flag at the forefront of that group of people. Look, that's the symbol of the East Continent's royal family. This group of people is the representative of the East Continent's royal family. So it was the royal family. No wonder they were so arrogant. But this was the North Continent. Moreover, many royal family representatives from other continents had also come. He had never seen any other royal family being so rude, had he? Furthermore, the representatives of the East Wave Continent's Jade Dome sect were still obediently lining up and entering the Joy Clan Palace in an orderly manner. What right did the royal family have to be so arrogant? However, today the Qinghua city was bustling with activity. The voices of the commoners were drowned out by the music. Lan Ling Nua, who was sitting in the carriage with a graceful posture, did not hear the criticism of the commoners outside. Through the white veil, she could see countless high officials and dignitaries making way for her. Some of the commoners were even talking about the East Wave imperial family. Lan Ling Nua thought that it was because the power of the East Wave continent was overwhelming, and everyone was afraid of the Lan family. In his heart, he felt more and more pleased. Lan Ling Nua had grown up in a situation where everyone doted on her, especially her beautiful face. Her life on the East Wave continent was smooth sailing. Even if he went to the West continent and entered the academy, she was also a fairy who was held in the palm of others' hands and respected. Because of this, Lan Ling Nua didn't think that these people were being courteous to her because of courtesy, but because they were afraid of her identity as the East Wave's imperial family. Little did she know. Among the many distinguished guests, Chapter 25:10. Yiqing Luo and the rest were also heading to Qingyue clan's birthday banquet today. A line of 10 people sat in a spacious carriage. Xiao Jin was chased outside the carriage to drive. They were more low-key and under the contrast of the other luxurious carriages. Their carriage looked very ordinary. Because of that, no other guests in the queue came forward to strike up a conversation. They were happy to be idle. Yiqing Luo lifted the curtains and took a look at the carriages beside the carriage. Truly worthy of being one of the 4 major sects, Qinyu sect. Just a birthday banquet and so many people are attending. I wonder if the Qinyu sect's manor can accommodate so many people. Looking at the sea of people, Lin Fan felt a chill down his spine. Yiqing Luo expressed that Yi Tianquang had really played 3 Springs sect to waste. They were obviously one of the 4 major sections. Although Yi Tianquang's birthday banquet was also very lively, but those who came were all small families and couldn't be seen in public. Without comparison, there would be no harm. In future, Fengyu's birthday banquet will be even more lively than Qingyue clan's. Yan Xiaoyi also stuck her head out to look outside the curtain. I don't wish. Yiqing Luo hurriedly shook her head. Yi Fengyu's birthday banquet was so extravagant. As the elder sister, wouldn't she be exhausted to death? Yan Xiaoyi burst out laughing. Outside the curtain, the carriages were crowded and it was too dangerous to stick her head out. Xiao Jin pressed Yan Xiaoyi's head and pushed her back into the carriage. In order to prevent Yan Xiaoyi from doing anything dangerous, he started a topic. You're attending Qingyue clan's sovereign's birthday banquet because the person who helped class monitor to suppress the poison is also there? Based on Yiqing Luo's character, this kind of occasion was troublesome. And Yiqing Luo's changed face had become famous on the first day she arrived in the northern continent. If she appeared at the sovereign's birthday banquet, she would probably stir up another storm. Most importantly, for this birthday banquet, the Miaogu family would also be there. Yiqing Luo should take this opportunity to overturn the Miaogu family. They didn't expect Yiqing Luo to follow them to the birthday banquet. They had no choice but to admit that Devil Class's bunch of brothers had interacted with Yiqing Luo for a long time, so they had more or less figured out Yiqing Luo's character. Eldest young Miss Miao has been poisoned by me and needs my antidote. I think today she will take the initiative to beg me. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as a crafty cold arc flashed past her eyes. Eldest young Miss Miao is able to suppress the class monitor's venom? Xiao Jin knew that Yiqing Luo definitely had an ulterior motive for attending the birthday banquet. It seemed like the sect leader of the Qingyue sect's birthday banquet was going to be spectacular. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. I don't know about venomous spells, so I don't know how good eldest Miss Miao's venomous spells are, but... She paused, and a meaningful look appeared on her face. Then his gaze fell on Miao Yi, who was sitting in the corner with her head lowered and in a daze. The few of them followed Yiqing Luo's line of sight. Miao Yi was immersed in her own thoughts and did not notice. Xian Gui, who had been sticking close to Miao Yi, raised his head. The skinny young man looked at them with clear eyes. The few of them smiled at Xian Gui and shifted their gazes away, continuing their conversation. Xiao Jin and the others weren't familiar with Miao Yi and Xian Gui. But seeing Yiqing Luo chatting in front of them without any intention to avoid arousing suspicion. So they didn't treat the both of them as outsiders. The few of them were chatting idly. Suddenly the carriage, which was moving at a tortoise speed, shook, as though it had been hit by something fiercely. The few people in the carriage swayed from the impact. Chapter 25:11. Xiangui immediately hugged Miao Yi's waist as his face flushed red. Second. Are you alright? Miao Yi shook her head as she raised her head in a daze. What's the matter? Did you collide with someone else's carriage? Xiao Jin's icy cold voice was heard from outside the carriage. The troublemakers are here. Looking for trouble? Yiqing Luo's brows rose when she heard that. We're so low profile and there's still someone looking for trouble. Yiqing Luo's voice had just ended. An ear-piercing roar was heard from outside the noisy carriage. How dare you? Do you know who's in the carriage? How dare you block the way? This guard's words were extremely arrogant. Xiao Jin scoffed as his voice was filled with coldness. No matter what your identity is in this Qinghua city, you're just guests attending Qinghua Sect's sovereign's birthday banquet. Moreover, you were the one who barged in and knocked into my carriage. I didn't ask you for compensation, but you're biting me instead. Speaking of this, Xiao Jin's tone became even more disdainful. I'm rather curious, what's your identity, to have such a big face? You. How dare you? The leading guard's face flushed red as he raised the long spear in his hand and pointed it at Xiao Jin. Barging in all the way. All the officials and dignitaries automatically gave way to them. The guard's self-confidence started to swell. Especially when they saw such an ordinary carriage, they treated it as some small powerhouse who came over to freeload. What's the matter? Lan Ling Nua's impatient voice was heard from the carriage. Haven't you already submitted the invitation, still not going in? Regent Princess, we met a small powerhouse who not only collided with you, they even blocked the entrance of Qinghua Sect, not allowing you to enter. That guard complained at the top of his voice. Lan Ling Nua's beautiful face surfaced a sliver of anger when she heard that. Along the way, everyone was polite to her. East Lan Regent Princess. A small powerhouse actually dared to block her way? Lan Ling Nua looked at the bustling guests and commoners through the white veil. Her beautiful eyes suddenly flashed a glint of brilliance. That's right, now was the time when it was bustling with noise and attention. She revealed herself at this moment. Let the people from all the continents see her beauty. She would definitely attract countless men who would go crazy for her. As she thought this, Lan Ling Nua adjusted her state of mind in the carriage. She stood up and lifted the white veil. The luxurious 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix robe accentuated Lan Ling Nua's graceful figure. Her makeup was exquisite, and she was extremely beautiful. It was indeed an extremely beautiful face. His appearance had indeed attracted the attention of many distinguished guests and commoners. However, the moment Lan Ling Nua opened her mouth, she destroyed her eyebrows. Where did this small force come from? Don't they understand the principle of first come, first served? It's no wonder that they're just a small force that can't even be shown in public. Lan Ling Nua had a haughty look as she glanced at the extremely ordinary carriage with disdain. His heart also relaxed. The disdain in his eyes deepened. Riding this kind of carriage to attend the Qinghua Sect's sect master's birthday banquet? It was obvious that he was a small fry with no power or status. How dare he block the path of the dignified Eastern Wave County Lord? However, Chapter 25:12. With that in mind, Lan Ling Nua's lips curled up into a smile. She smiled sweetly and said, I am not a barbaric person. Seeing that you are only a small force and don't know the rules, I will not argue with you. You have offended me. She paused for a moment, then continued with a smile. What about you? All of you, get out of the car. Kneel down and kowtow in front of me to apologize. I'll forgive you for your rudeness this time. As Lan Ling Nua spoke, she couldn't help but praise herself for being so kind-hearted. She wanted everyone to think that she, the Princess of East Wave, was not only beautiful, but also kind-hearted. She wouldn't hold it against such lowly people. However, she didn't know that her current behavior had already aroused the disgust of most people. Those who had an invitation and could attend the birthday banquet of the Qinhua's sect leader were either rich or powerful. They were all people of the upper class. How could a little girl like Lan Lingnua be able to fool them? Look at Lan Lingnua, who was pretending to be gentle. She couldn't hide the arrogance and haughtiness in her eyes. It didn't match the fake gentleness she was pretending to be. Especially since Lan Lingnua had appeared. She had been arrogant, despotic and arrogant. She treated everyone's modesty as a matter of course. She was really annoying. She didn't know why the ruler of the East Wave continent would send such a useless princess to represent the royal family. Wasn't she afraid of losing the face of the East Wave continent's royal family? Qiao Jin frowned. He clearly wasn't in the mood to argue with Lan Lingnua. A good dog doesn't block the way. Get lost. Lan Lingnua's arrogant face froze. She was already trying to be kind and forgiving of these lowly forces. This lowly driver actually called her a dog and even shouted at her? Since young, where wasn't she, Lan Lingnua, pampered at the top of everyone's hearts? Lan Lingnua was so angry that her face darkened. She couldn't maintain her dignified and gentle expression any longer. How dare you? You're just a driver. How dare you speak to me like this? Call your master out for me. The guards behind her saw that their princess was angry. Immediately, 2 strong guards walked quickly toward the carriage. The people in the carriage, get down from our princess. One of the guards stepped onto the carriage and pulled open the curtains. He was about to reach out and drag the person away. Qiao Jin saw that the guard was using brute force and did not stop him. Instead, he dodged to the side. Lan Lingnua couldn't help but laugh out loud. A cowardly groom. After being frightened, all his temper was gone. Just a moment ago, he even dared to insult her, the Eastern Wave County Lord. After she taught the owner of the carriage a lesson, she would also teach the coachman a lesson. Ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. A figure flew out from the ordinary carriage. Most of the distinguished guests who were spectating were profound practitioners, or had countless experts by their side. The moment his figure flew out, he immediately moved away. The figure landed heavily on the ground. Everyone fixed their eyes on him, and saw that he was actually a guard dressed in a dazzling outfit. Lan Lingnua was stunned. She didn't expect that the person in the carriage would dare to attack her after knowing her identity. He was so angry that his face turned pale. He immediately ordered the other guards to use brute force to destroy the carriage. It was very crowded. All the distinguished guests were in a hurry to enter the Joy Clan residence and take their seats. They weren't in the mood to watch the unreasonable pestering of the Eastern Wave County Lord. Especially now, the Eastern Wave County Lord and the owner of the carriage were blocking the entrance of the Joy Clan residence. Lan Lingnua didn't have any intention of stopping. Instead, she became more and more aggressive. Chapter 25:13. Don't block the entrance of the Qinhua clan if you have any grudges, okay? If you don't want to go in, then don't hold everyone back. There are still many people waiting in line. As soon as the complaint was voiced, it was immediately echoed by the others. They already knew about the East Wave County Lord's arrogance and disrespect, so they were not interested in knowing more about it. They came all the way to the North Wave continent to build a relationship with the Qinhua clan. They were not interested in watching the little girls show off. There were even some honored guests who were resentful because Lan Lingnua had cut the queue and barged through the crowd, and they couldn't help but mock her. Today is the birthday of the sect master of the Qinhua clan. East Wave County Lord. Is this the attitude of the East Wave continent's royal family toward the sect master of the Qinhua clan? Or, the teachings that the East Wave County Lord has received since she was young is that the East Wave continent is the only one in the Nirvana realm. Every word and sentence caused the forces from the East Wave continent to break out in a cold sweat. The representatives of the forces from the East Wave continent wanted to disassociate themselves. However, Lan Lingnua frowned her beautiful face and looked at the surrounding guests with an aggrieved expression. It was this lowly force that offended me. It's their fault. Why do you keep blaming me? As she spoke, her eyes turned red. He had a pitiful look on his face. This expression, coupled with her exquisite and beautiful face, was indeed an alluring stunner. It could indeed arouse the protective desire of men. However, Lan Lingnua was still trying to use her beauty to absolve herself from the blame at this critical juncture when she had incurred the wrath of the public. That would be a big mistake. Even if some forces were attracted by Lan Lingnua's beauty, think about her arrogant personality. Look at her pitiful appearance now. No matter how you looked at it, it felt very awkward. Especially since Lan Lingnua's actions had offended a large number of noble ladies. These noble ladies had grown up in the backyard since young. She kept saying one thing after another. Every word she said made Lan Lingnua so ashamed that she could not refute. In an instant, Lan Lingnua's face turned red from the criticism of those noble ladies and ladies, as well as the guests who were already extremely impatient. Lan Lingnua had never suffered such humiliation. Just as Lan Lingnua was about to explode in anger, a small figure, under the protection of a group of well-trained guards, walked over quickly. Sister Nua, what happened? When Lan Lingnua saw her, it was as if she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Lingling, you must seek justice for me. Someone dares to be so arrogant in your Northern Tide Continent's territory. They simply don't respect your Northern Tide Continent. Lan Lingnua's face turned red, and she was so angry that her eyes turned red. When Xia Lingling saw this, she felt that Lan Lingnua was so angry that she was crying. He recalled the scene of Lan Lingnua saving him at the Peach Blossom restaurant. Xia Lingling immediately held Lan Lingnua's hand tightly. This time, it was her turn to protect elder sister Nu. She raised her head, and her small face was filled with displeasure as she glared at those people. You are all reputable people from various continents. Don't you feel embarrassed bullying a little girl like this? Everyone had been waiting at the entrance of Qinghua clan residence for a long time. They were blocked at the entrance, and they could only watch as Lan Lingnua threw a tantrum. They had long suppressed their displeasure in their hearts. Chapter 25:14. First, it was the princess of the East Billow region who was arrogant and rude in front of them. Seeing that she was just a little girl, he maintained the attitude that it wasn't appropriate for her to cause trouble on the birthday of the Qinghua sect master. They graciously endured it. Now Princess Balon was criticizing them. Although they were on their own continent, their status and power were indeed incomparable to the royal family. But that didn't mean that he was going to the Northern Wave continent to attend the birthday banquet. He was even bullied by the royal family of the Northern Wave continent. If this news were to spread back to his own continent, wouldn't they become the laughingstock of the Northern Wave continent? There were even people from other continents making guesses. Were the East and North continents planning to join forces and invade the other two continents? As soon as these words were spoken, it instantly caused all the distinguished guests and the surrounding commoners to panic. This was related to the peace of the Nirvana realm. The distinguished guests from the various continents immediately began to question. The representatives of the forces of the two continents in the north and east hurriedly explained. This meant that they had absolutely no intention of destroying the peace of the Nirvana realm. Lan Lingnua realized the seriousness of the matter under everyone's pushing and shouting. Her heart trembled violently, and her little hand tightly grasped Xia Lingling's wrist. If this group of people really believed that she and Xia Lingling, as the representatives of the royal families of the two continents, had joined forces to destroy the peace of the Nirvana realm, she would be killed by these people. Furthermore, even if these people let her go back to the East Wave continent, no matter how much Uncle June spoiled her, she had caused such a huge commotion. Uncle Monarch would not let her off easily either. Lan Lingnua knew how to make use of her beauty. In the East and West continents, she was doing very well. Naturally, she was not a fool. She immediately grabbed Xia Lingling's hand and said with a sobbing tone, "Lingling, you've misunderstood. It's not the lords, it's the person in the carriage." As she spoke, she put on a humiliated expression. It was clearly my East Billow tribe's invitation that was sent first, but the coachman of this carriage actually drove his horse and directly bumped into me, insisting on entering the manor before me. I couldn't take it anymore, So I argued with the coachman, but I didn't expect. Lan Ling Nua wanted to push all the blame for this farce onto the small faction in the horse carriage. In any case, it was just a lowly small force. To die for her, Princess Donglan. That would be their honor. However, he could not personally teach these lowly and rude people a lesson. Xia Lingling was startled. She immediately turned her head to look at the low-profile carriage. She frowned and lifted her foot to kick the carriage. The people inside, get out. Once again, she called out to Lan Ling Nua's guards and her own guards. Push the carriage to the side for me. Don't delay everyone from attending Uncle Sect Leader's birthday. The two girls directly ignored the surrounding guests who were pointing at them and gossiping about them. All of them turned their attention to the carriage. One of them burst into tears. One of them kicked the carriage in a rude and unreasonable manner. They were all people of status, and they weren't young either. At this time, it was not good to continue to harass the two little girls. In the carriage, Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes revealed a trace of teasing smile. Although Xia Lingling was only 12 or 13 years old, she was very quick-witted. He specifically asked the guards to push their carriage aside and make way for them. The distinguished guests had been delayed for a long time, and their hearts were already burning with anxiety. Chapter 25:15. Adding on to that, Xia Lingling's greeting of Uncle Sovereign had successfully intimidated them. They were here to offer their blessings to the sovereign of Qingyue sect. For Xia Lingling to address the sovereign of Qingyue sect as uncle, it was obvious that the relationship between the royal family and the sovereign of Qingyue sect was rather close. So it was even more impossible for them to haggle over anything. How could Yiqing Luo allow this show to end so easily? If she didn't teach them a lesson, they didn't know how to learn from their mistakes. This could be considered as her teaching them a lesson. Bam! Bam bam bam. Just as the two groups of guards swarmed towards the carriage, trying to push the carriage away, an extremely powerful profound energy suddenly exploded from within the carriage. That force sent the guards, who were caught off guard, flying. One by one, they fell onto the ground, crying out in pain. You! How dare you lay your hands on the royal guards? Xia Lingling couldn't believe her eyes as she watched her guard fall to the ground and wail in pain. Lan Ling Nua, who was standing by the side, sobbed softly. Earlier I asked the guards to ask the owner of the carriage to alight, but was thrown out by the person in the carriage. It's just a small powerhouse, but they totally disregarded us. Her tone sounded as though she had suffered a huge grievance. She was obviously complaining, but she was reminding Xia Lingling. The person in the carriage was just someone from a small powerhouse, and he was extremely arrogant. When Xia Lingling heard that, she was so infuriated that her face turned red. She had always relied on her status as a little princess, and was used to doing evil. The word she couldn't bear to hear was others disregarding her. This princess wants to see how powerful a small powerhouse's representative is. Xia Lingling walked directly to the side of the carriage and lifted her leg to step on the curtain. Xiao Jin, who was by the side, had long sat at the side with a, "You guys can fight however you want, I'm just here to watch the show look." Xia Lingling shot a disdainful glance at Xiao Jin. She raised her hand and was about to lift the curtain. Her hand hadn't even been lifted. That floating curtain was pinched by a hand. That hand was as fair as jade, and the fingers were long and slender, like a fine jade. Even Xia Lingling, who had never done any manual labor and had meticulously taken care of her body every day, couldn't help but feel inferior when she saw her fair fingers. Then the curtain of the carriage was lifted. A rather delicate face entered Xia Lingling's sight. When Xia Lingling's gaze was fixed on that face, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She suddenly screamed, "Ah!" Then, as if he had received a huge shock, he took a few steps back. He retreated. Xia Lingling's footsteps missed. His body fell backwards. Boom! Xia Lingling fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Her entire body was throbbing in pain from the fall. Even the slightest movement would cause his bones or tendons to be pulled, and he would feel a tearing pain. Young princess. The guards who had fallen to the ground were so frightened that they didn't have the mind to care about their injuries. One by one, They rushed forward and shouted anxiously, "Little Commandery Princess, are you all right? Young princess." Ugh. Xia Lingling was in so much pain from the fall that tears streamed down her face. With the help of the guards, she stood up, grimacing in pain and gasping. It's you, it's you." Xia Lingling stared at the carriage in disbelief. She was so angry that her body was trembling and her voice was trembling. "Bitch! It's you again. It's you again." The slender figure in red walked out of the carriage. Even if she turned into ashes. Chapter 25:16. Yiqing Luo half squatted on the carriage as she placed one hand on her knee. She tilted her head and looked at the disheveled Xia Lingling with a smile which didn't look like a smile as she burst out laughing. "Yo, isn't this little Princess Bei Lan why? After failing to flaunt your prowess at the Peach Blossom restaurant, you're now running over to the entrance of Qingyue sect to play your little princess tricks?" Xia Lingling's eyes were brimming with tears as her eyes shot out a ruthless glint. Her little face was twisted into a ball. "You slut! You've been disrespectful to me time and time again. Do you believe that I won't ask Uncle Monarch to chop off your head?" Xia Lingling's sharp voice screamed sharply. Seeing Yiqing Luo, she recalled the humiliation she had suffered in Yiqing Luo's hands previously. Her eyes were filled with fury. "Guards! Capture this lowly commoner for me." The guards looked at each other in dismay. They weren't stupid. Earlier in the carriage, the force which had sent them flying. It was absolutely not a force which they could contend against. Xia Lingling was after all still young, and was in a fit of anger, so how could she think of anything else? Her mind was filled with the thought of teaching Yiqing Luo a lesson. Seeing that the guards were rooted to the ground, Xia Lingling was so angry that she bared her teeth. "I can't even order you around anymore, is it? Alright, you bunch of trash. Wait till I return. I will ask Uncle Monarch to confiscate your family." When the honored guests heard Xia Lingling's arrogant words, their hearts involuntarily began to beat like drums. This Princess Bei Lan was extremely arrogant in her words, and from time to time, she would bring out her Uncle Monarch. Apparently, this was the reason why Monarch Bei Lan gave her such arrogant confidence. Everyone's gaze unconsciously shifted to the front where the signboard of the Delight Clan residence was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It was an extremely festive sight. A royal princess dared to create such a ruckus at the entrance of Qingyue sect, and even asked the monarch to stand up for her. That meant that she didn't put Qingyue sect in her eyes at all. From the bottom of her heart, she felt that even if it was Qingyue sect, they had to submit to the royal family. Little Princess Bei Lan was only 12 or 13 years old. For her to have such arrogant behavior and remarks, it was obvious that someone had instilled a deep-rooted idea in her. This person. Who else could it be other than Sovereign Bei Lan? In other words, was Monarch Bei Lan trying to suppress the Qingyue clan? This thought flashed across the minds of all the distinguished guests. They looked in the direction of the Joy clan residence with a meaningful and probing gaze. However, Xia Lingling, who was in a fit of anger, did not notice that her actions had already aroused many speculations. "Bitch. Don't think that you can bully people just because you have a high profound rank. This is the Northern Wave continent, outside of Uncle Sect Master's residence. If you dare to cause trouble, Uncle Sect Master will never let you off." Xia Lingling's voice became softer and softer under Yiqing Luo's pair of smiling yet not smiling eyes, as her arrogance became lower and lower. At the end of her sentence, she felt her heart fill with fear, as though it was going to jump out of her throat. Her face was deathly pale, and her heart was filled with hatred. She did not want to be afraid of this slut. But unfortunately, the more she looked at this slut, the stranger she felt. Her lips trembled as she immediately sought help from Lanling Nua. "Sister Nua, look at this slut," she. Lanling Nua had already squeezed into the crowd. Earlier, when the distinguished guests guessed that East Wave Continent and North Wave Continent were going to form an alliance, it gave her a reminder. Chapter 25:17. Although she despised these people who ran over to the North Continent, hoping to get in touch with the sovereign of Qingyu sect. But after all, these were all influential people from various continents. She wasn't afraid of these people. But she didn't want the East continent to become enemies with these people. Because of this, Xia Lingling, that idiot, stood out herself, standing at the heart of the struggle. Lan Lingnua decisively chose to let Xia Lingling take the blame alone. But unexpectedly, Xia Lingling actually dragged her out again. Lan Lingnua's expression was steely green, but when Xia Lingling looked at her, her expression had already adjusted, with a timid look and red eyes. But in her heart, she was cursing Xia Lingling over and over again. Lingling. Lan Lingnua had no choice but to walk up. Her mind was spinning quickly. Everyone in the world sympathized with the weak. No matter what, she had to act pitiful now, using her beauty to attract all the VIPs to stand on her side. Hence, Lan Lingnua pretentiously pressed the corner of her eyes. As she was about to cry, She's not a lady to be trifled with, Lingling, let's go. Saying that, Lan Lingnua pulled Xia Lingling's arm, and was about to leave. He vividly portrayed the look of helplessness and humiliation on his face. Look how pitiful she was. Bullied by a shrew. All the grievances could only be swallowed into her stomach. Lan Lingnua's pretentiousness, whether the VIPs took the bait or not, she didn't know. But Xia Lingling was definitely stabbed. Not to be trifled with? In my North Continent's territory, there's someone whom I can't trifled with? Lan Lingnua immediately continued. She dared to poison the Battle King's young lord, and even in the Peach Blossom restaurant, relying on the power of the Peach Blossom 3000 mercenary group, totally disregarding the East Continent and North Continent. She must have a distinguished status, we'd better forget about it. It was obviously words of persuasion, but every single word was to agitate Xia Lingling, the two princess of the two continents, although they didn't interact often. But Lan Lingnua more or less understood Xia Lingling's character. Just a few words easily aroused Xia Lingling's competitive spirit. And when the VIPs heard Lan Lingnua's words, their gazes shifted onto Yiqing Luo. Poison the young prince of the War King's mansion? How could this woman be so bold? There were also quite a number of people who had stayed in the city for a period of time. Naturally, they knew about the Battle King's mansion's search for a red-clothed girl. There were some who recognized Yiqing Luo. He immediately talked about the search in the warlord's mansion. Everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with probing. He seemed to be guessing what identity this seemingly ordinary young girl had to actually dare to touch the young prince of the warlord's mansion. Distinguished status? Xia Lingling's sharp voice rang out. Her? A lowly commoner dares to say that he has an honorable status? Yiqing Luo, whose nose was pointed at, leisurely curled her pink lips as she tilted her head slightly, smiling at Xia Lingling. Lowly commoner? In the eyes of the young princess, we the common people, are lowly peasants? Xia Lingling only heard the words, we are ordinary people. Immediately, he was even more certain that Yiqing Luo was just a little thing without any influence. Without thinking, he sneered angrily. Of course. No power or influence. Aren't they lowly peasants? You have to bow and scrape when you see me, aren't you lowly peasants? Yiqing Luo's smile grew wider. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.